on. The hour being after 7 with a quorum, I'll open the meeting. First item, business minutes of June 7th. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next one. Where's our other business?
Almost at the bottom.
What?
Other business. Other business, you said?
Yeah, no, one,
Oh.
our other business contestants.
Hall. One of them was out in the hall when I came in.
Mm-hmm. Who, which one?
Mr. Glosser.
Oh.
They were both out there. And then Mr. Yella, is that his name?
I think so, yeah.
Should go get Johnny, get him in? We're gonna sit here for another 20 minutes staring at each other.
John, Lorraine, 1350.
Comes right here.
It's your.
Where you going? Where you going? Up.
So, the hearing's been continued to, I think is it July 17th or 19th?
19th.
But, so this is Anthony Yeva, who's the applicant, and there were two questions which I, really couldn't answer completely when I was here. So one was the, I did bring that stuff here, if you don't mind. One was the access from the parking stalls in the rear to the building. And then the other was what's gonna happen with this door that's right here. So this plan shows these decks, which are not part of the current plan. The architect has taken those off. So those will be taken off for the July 19th meeting. And then Anthony can explain, but he has his architect now working on a stairway. So you can see there's a little bump out in the back of that building. That's not a stairway now, right?
No.
But he's working on putting a stairway in that location to get up into the building. So the whole discussion about the people going around is, kind of moot if the architect can do that. And then the other thing was the door in the back there. So Anthony, like I said, had gone to the state to get permission to have a chairlift at that location. It actually, I don't know if you have the plans from the architect, the preliminary, but it sort of bumps out a little bit from the building in that location. So that is, and it just goes right, it just goes to the first floor, right? It just goes to the first floor.
So that's like an exterior, actual lift.
Yes, it's a lift though that goes from the first floor to the second floor, not to the basement.
But from this door entrance and then up, correct? Or is it,
No, it's not in the back.
it's on the side?
Yeah, it's on the side here, but there's already a platform.
Already like a loading platform there,
Yeah,
right?
so it would basically, they would build it from the first floor and it's just a lift to get people from the first floor to the second floor.
Oh, so it doesn't even come down to the
It
ground?
doesn't come down to the ground.
It's on the building, but it's not, it doesn't come down to the ground?
So it's accessible only from the inside?
From the inside.
From the inside?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
How many people can?
It's a one-person lift, but we
Like a
were
wheelchair.
approved by the AAB. I think I sent you
Right.
they approved it
For
for.
just one?
For just one.
What if the person in the wheelchair needs a person with them?
Well, I mean, you can have, it fits a
Two,
person.
okay.
Person, yeah. It's enough for you to wheel somebody in there.
Yeah.
Not that it matters, but is it gonna be, it's gonna be fully enclosed, so we'll just see a 1.5 story bump out,
Yeah.
but
outer shaft.
everything inside
Everything
will be inside. Okay, cool, good.
Yeah, and then the other thing was what's gonna happen with that door that's there. So that is an area that, where you can get into the basement floor, and the basement itself is just gonna be used as a basement. It's gonna have its mechanicals, and just whatever's in there, that's all. It's not, there's no storage.
There's no distribution in that building, that's just for our office and our showroom. All our distribution is on 83 Moore Street in Norwood.
Space Center?
We have a 20, in Space Center,
Yeah.
we have a 20,000 square foot building back there.
Yeah,
And that's
nice.
where we do all our storing and
So
anything.
you're just consulting and selling, showing, and then anything that someone would order would be ordered but then distributed out of your Moore Street
Norwood.
location? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
tractor trailers, all our tractor trailers now go to Norwood, we have loading docks there.
Good. So other than new things to show, you're not gonna be loading things in and out
Yeah.
very often at all? All right.
There'll be no trucks going over there to unload or pick up anything.
Unless you wanna change a display or something, yeah, okay. Good.
And the basement level's not accessible to the public, it's just for you and the employees.
Well, that staircase in the back of the building, he was talking about to get to the first floor, originally had a staircase that went down. There was an old building in the back of the building that had a staircase that went into the basement. So we are gonna connect those again, because if you do need to get to the mechanical room, if a sprinkler's going off or something, we have to get to the main shut-offs and stuff. We don't wanna have to walk around the building, we wanna be able to get down there.
But you're connecting it for your use, not for the
Yeah.
public.
Yes, for our use.
John, have you shown this plan for the lift to the building inspector?
Yes.
And-
He was copied on all the submittals that we had to do. It was all certified. I've already talked to, Dave Norton. He said you got approved. He got the approval to, I sent you.
Yeah, I
the
have
form.
it, if you wanna see it, I have the copy of that. Apparently, it was one of the PDFs that it couldn't get down,
But Dave Norton, he was aware of it in the beginning. He was the one who told me you have to go to the AAB and told me what to do, and that's what we did.
And so he has no problem with
No,
this?
no.
so, and
He
I
doesn't
just
have
have
a
the one
choice.
copy. Did everyone get the
What?
four?
He doesn't have a
plans?
choice. If he gets the waiver, he's all
So
set.
those are that's the thing from the state.
I think we already covered that.
Okay.
This?
Yeah.
What?
We're not actually in a hearing.
No. So, he's just telling what's coming up. Well, since we're not in a hearing, you can only explain. I think you've explained, nothing else to explain?
That's it. I don't wanna waste your time. We need to revise the plans, get that stuff on the plans, but I just wanted you to hear it from Anthony, because as I said,
Okay.
I wasn't able to adequately explain to you exactly what his ideas were.
Okay.
So, I
And-
think this 5 minutes or 10 minutes as
And
well.
you'll have it in by the
Yeah, we'll have it in.
4th or something?
Yeah,
Okay.
all right, great. Thanks a lot for
Yeah,
your
thanks
time.
for coming in.
Thank you.
John, the one night you're quick, we have time to fill.
Pardon me?
I said, the one night you're quick.
I could've gone on.
Yeah, well, I know, but. All right.
You didn't give me the signal.
Should have done a 7:15.
All right. Any of the Renmar guys here? No? Oh, okay. Preliminary, you wanna do that? Continued? You got 15 minutes, so if you're gonna be quick, talk. All right?
Do my best.
Okay. This is a preliminary, continued preliminary hearing for the two-lot subdivision on Renmar Drive.
Correct.
Yep.
And as you'll recall, at the last hearing, we were discussing the preliminary plan. We had a number of discussions and comments from the board, which we took back and edited the plan, took those comments into consideration, and resubmitted a set of plans. The first comment that we addressed was on the frontage. The original plan showed one continuous frontage number on both the new subdivision roadway as well as Renmar. What we've done is broken that out to show the frontage on,
We got that plan? Oh, the one you sent, okay. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the current plan shows conforming frontage for both lots, dimensioned on the new proposed roadway. So we've broken that out to show that compliance.
AQV.
No, this is,
Preliminary
That's not
plan?
even it.
Small,
So the Renmar papers were in this one.
five sheets.
What's it dated, June seventh?
June 19th.
June 19th. Let's see, 4/26?
June 19th.
so much for the 14 days. I don't have it.
June 15th.
They don't go out.
Exactly, they, but I didn't have to give to the board with the plan. And no small ones.
Just have the full size.
Because they don't want one. I'll share with Mark. Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on, here's one more. It's too big.
Okay.
The front page.
Preliminary plan. Oh, there's the road. Found it. Okay, yeah, last time we talked about you gotta put the frontage on the new street, cause it wouldn't be a subdivision without it. That's what we told, yeah.
Yep, so we've broken that out and shown that on both lots. In addition to that, one minor edit, we changed the title. We took out the word proposed, which was on the cover sheet, so it's just reading preliminary plan now. In addition, we've added a note. There was a question about the nature of the subdivision. I guess in the bylaws, we're supposed to include a note somewhere on the plan about the nature of the subdivision. So we've added a note that it's will be commercial in nature in accordance with the allowed uses in the limited manufacturing zone. So we've added that. And the other item that we were waiting for that was discussed last meeting was the Board of Health had not submitted any comments. So it's my understanding that they had a meeting last night and it was on their agenda and they discussed that last night.
Have you seen it?
No.
All right, dated, excuse me, the 20th, at the meeting on June 19th, the board voted unanimously that both the proposed lots are within the wetlands. The board has objections to building within a 100-foot buffer, vegetated wetlands, and even stronger objections to construction within wetlands, and would urge the planning board to reject the plan as submitted. No, Board of Health.
Board of Health?
Yeah. No, different sandbox. So, but given.
So what was that? What was the reason? Because they were with, they
They didn't like
contained?
the wetlands.
the wetlands in the rear of the site, the entire?
No, they just said they rejected it because of the wetlands, but
There's wetlands on the site, but I believe they are primarily to the rear of the 55 acres and not within,
yep.
I will say, a few hundred feet of the proposed roadway.
Oh, this is a,
Yeah, but whether they like it or not, the basis is they're not the conservation. And the other thing is, even if there was gonna be an issue, I'm sure you know, you could just cut the lot off right at the wetlands and have no wetlands for this,
And
so.
if there was the requirement to file with Conservation Commission, if we were within
Yeah.
any of the wetland bylaws, we would do that. We have been in front of Conservation Commission within the past year on this property, and we do have a resource area delineation that was recently approved by the Conservation Commission.
this is a preliminary to a commercial.
Yeah, yeah, we have subdivisions, residential and
Mhm.
commercial.
And how does this is very confusing, because you're on the
Hmm?
board for limited site plan and a special permit.
Correct.
And the documents that we received about earlier to this was regarding a preliminary plan subdivision to free zoning for a special permit, which I really didn't understand. It made no sense to me. But now what does this do for you?
This is just a basic subdivision of the property into 2 lots.
And has no relevance to anything else you're doing.
No.
And all the memorandum that were flying around before in the last couple of weeks seem to have a relationship, the preliminary plan, a relationship to the special permit and the site plan review.
It has a legal implication, but no, they're 2 separate processes and not related.
They just wanted to come in and do a preliminary and give us some money, Joe, for something they may never build.
That's correct.
You know, it's a felony in Massachusetts for teasing an elderly person. I mean, this is a shell, sort of like a shell game. I don't mean it in a bad way, but, you know, there's no purpose to some of the actions that are being done here.
To freeze the zoning.
This freezes zoning. What does it freeze it from? There was no action taken at town meeting relative to this type of development.
They couldn't have ensured that, so that's why they filed it.
Yeah, this, you can only freeze a subdivision, you can't freeze a site plan,
Right.
so. But
So,
that's what they wanted to do, and maybe they might like building this better. So the Board of Health, they don't want you, they say building within 100 feet, so that's where they're just telling you, so it's not like they're against it, they just don't wanna build within 100 feet, and nothing's shown to be built within 100 feet, so should not be an issue. And
Like I said, we'll deal with Concom on any issues.
your name, right? Yeah, we need your name. for the
Name
record.
of the proposed street? Oh, my name.
You,
Tom Godfrey,
from,
Bristol Brothers Development.
okay. Anybody else have any questions? Covered last time, what?
Still don't see the frontage on the new road.
On page C3. They showed both, Sarah, I mean, they noted both, but when you do a subdivision, your frontage has to be on the new road, so.
Right.
Lot 1 has 204.2 and Lot 2 has 204.2. Wow. 50-50 deal, and I just show that there is some 70-foot along Rymar and 423 also.
I think so.
Okay,
I'm not seeing it.
I don't see
You
it.
got the same plan,
Specified though.
right there. No, you don't got the right,
We don't get the right.
yeah, you got an older plan. You want to see, please?
Yeah.
Oh, you circled it, this is different, you circled
Yeah, right there.
Right here.
Down there.
it. Yeah,
There, okay, all right, I tried to it's give there. you.
that's fine. I saw you circle, no, I thought
Want
that
the
was
official
all.
second thing?
They were so. Between this and the other.
Thank you.
Have you looked at this?
No, it's the first time seeing it.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it.
Well, we saw it last time.
Right.
Yeah, no, but the revised ones, I mean.
Yeah, but the only revised is the only revision they said they did was just note where the frontage is on. and it's-
You wanna look at it?
At the last minute, no.
All right, anybody have, any more questions, comments? Preliminary's on binding, I'll just make a motion that we agree with what they have, I guess. Close to approval, just, yeah, we'll just say we agree with what they have. Got a second?
What do we,
Just agreeing that what they had is all right, not s- approving
But
it.
it meets the preliminary.
Yeah, it meets the
plan.
preliminary.
I'll
yeah.
second.
All right, there's a second. Further discussions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Done? Done. Okay. Tick a tick a tick. All right. Coming up in a second is Southside. Come on down. Rob, we got a lot tonight, so it's like changing up on the fly after Dan's down. We don't wanna get caught short on the ice. All right, almost there, Dan, a minute, but we'll get the folders. What?
So much easier.
Oh.
That's why I said that.
And we're at the hour being after 7:25, we have a continued public hearing for Southside 505 South Street for a site plan and special permits. And last time, we discussed you were going to do some changes, Dan, and
Yeah, I made a few minor changes to the site plan. I think as I presented to you at the last meeting, we eliminated 4 spaces around the tank back here. There was an incorrect parking count on the plans. We corrected that. There's 86 parking spaces total. 17 of them are newly proposed. A question was raised about handicap spaces. I went back and looked at that. We did have to add 1 handicap space, so we converted 1 existing regular parking space at one of the 2 main entrances to a handicap space. So no change in parking count, we just added that 4th handicap space. We added the snow storage areas in the plan, added a few notes for the town planner and the town engineer, and that's about it, basically.
okay, I will read the comments that we have, if we send it out again. Board of Health doesn't meet until the 19th. Did they, you know if they sent anything for this?
I just wanted, if it's there, I'm not sure.
Hold that to the side. That was, no, that's between Dan and Maggie. From the Conservation Commission, dated June 14th. Property has an outstanding order of conditions, or a certificate of compliance. Dan Marroquin was notified by the conservation agent that a request for a certificate of compliance is needed.
That was, the request was submitted earlier this week.
Okay. From the ZBA, dated June 7th, they have no comments, no above referenced matter. From the sewer and water commission has no comments with regard to the above subject. I believe they had some previous to that. From the fire department, Deputy Chief Paul Barry, the fire department reviewed the plans. We find the plans dated 6/7 with the tanks protected as per NFPA to be acceptable. And that's, so you're all set with the fire. That's the reason for knocking out space, right, or two?
Yeah, you need a barrier between the parking area and the tanks. So we added the notation that there's two kinds of barriers that can be used, and they'll coordinate that with the fire department.
Okay, and Maggie, you only got one thing here to read, I guess, you said,
Dated, which one do you have?
20th?
Everything, I met with Dan, yesterday, I believe, and everything's taken care of.
okay.
So this is,
There was another one, yes.
All right, and Tim, do you wanna read yours?
The applicant is proposing to install a new catch basin. I had asked for, stormwater to be looked at, because it was in compliance with DEP. The proposed system does comply with DEP, which is acceptable. Existing, basin is overgrown, and I did not get out there, Mr. Chairman, to see if it's been cleaned.
It has been cleaned, yes.
Excellent. I had asked for detail on the outfall pipe into the basin, and now it's been provided. The wall-mounted luminaires, we confirmed that the lighting should be sufficient for the new parking area. The width of the travel lanes should be identified on the plan, which has also been done. And the new island, the corner, is not gonna be landscaped and has been changed on the plan to show it being paved and striped. I'm all set.
You all set? Okay, start with Joe, you have anything?
no,
Kate?
I'm good.
Mark?
That's great.
Sarah?
Yeah, good.
Okay. I don't have anything. Anybody from the audience relative to 505 South Street? Okay. Can't find anything from Board of Health. Do we have it? We don't have anything. Kate, right? Do you get the old folder? I just wanna see what they had there. I believe they commented before.
Who's that?
Board of Health.
Okay.
Oh, you got it?
That's special
Ooh.
permit inside.
no, that's the one that
What
said
is
they're
that?
not meeting.
Take one of each of those, pass them down, and then this is yours.
Okay. Let me look. We didn't get anything back then.
You did respond, Joe.
What?
There is a letter.
From them?
Yeah,
I was looking at your checks and it didn't have one checked.
says, continue for Board of Health comments and was received on 6/20.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is from the original.
Oh, from the original.
Yeah, we didn't get any there. So that, we haven't got any comments since day one, other than we're not meeting, so. Given it's not a subdivision, it does not hang in the balance, correct?
Agreed, yep, I agree.
And it's too bad, I mean, this hearing was back in May 17th, I believe, so, okay. That we have, I'll make a motion to close site plan and the special permit.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I'll make a motion to approve site plan, case number 1806.
He needs a waiver,
That's what I
traffic
want.
assessment.
Okay, so what I want to do is that, do we have that on our special conditions? No? You asked for waiver? Traffic?
We did, yes, in the DIS.
Alright, we'll do that one you wanna we'll do the waiver, okay, make a motion to grant the waiver for the traffic
Impact assessment.
impact assessment.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
That's the only special condition, right?
Right.
Did we wanna ask about, road salt or
The what?
any for snow removal, any special conditions for snow removal, given the resource area?
I don't know what we had last last time on the old site plan.
I don't think there was anything on the original site plan approval.
What would you like to add, Sarah?
Or even, I just remembered the question that I had is, are there any signs, okay. Are there any signs to prevent snow removal into that, stormwater basin?
No signage, no. Certainly add that.
I think that might be appropriate.
Sure. That could be a special.
Okay.
So you add a sign to this retention basin?
Yeah, just to prevent, because it's nice and open, they might just,
No snow dumping,
yeah.
okay. Is that the only other one?
I think
That
so,
you recall?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. The motion, you second it? Or did you second the original? Okay. Mr. Saras, all those in favor of the sign?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, I have a motion already on the site plan decision. Joe, did you second or did you stop me? I don't remember.
I stopped you.
Okay. All right.
You want a second?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure is a second. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. Okay, now, before we get into it, I don't believe we had anything on the special permit. Any special conditions that, I think we took care of 'em on the site plan. So I'll make a motion to approve case number 1807, the special permit. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained. 500.
Thank you for
You
your
all set?
time.
Go, jump the boards, let's go. All right. I recall we opened it to continue, correct? I believe, okay. Whenever you're ready, Kate.
Do we get a new plan? Seven?
I'll share again.
That is mine. What's the date on that?
June 5th.
Stamped, okay. I'm all set. Okay, with the hour being after 7:30, we have a continued public hearing for 173 Pemberton Street, which the last time we heard was continue without testimony. With that being said, introduce yourself, Rob, and explain what we have.
Sure. For the record, Rob Truax of Field Engineering Consultants. Here representing Walpole Building Company. What we're proposing this evening is a two-lot, single-family residential subdivision. A little history on the site. It's an existing site up at 173 Pemberton. There's an existing dwelling on the property. The site is shown as two lots on the assessor maps in the town of Walpole. The current owners bought the property back in the early 80s. With the understanding that they had two buildable lots, and at that time, which they did under the current zoning at that time. Since such time, the zoning changed. The frontage requirement today for that same area is 125 feet of frontage. The two lots only had 100 feet. They've been taxed all these years as two buildable lots, as the existing house and a second buildable lot. They went before the ZBA to request a variance for the second lot. They were denied the variance. ZBA did not find a hardship. The fact that the zoning changed and they've been taxed for all these years is not considered a hardship by the ZBA. So with that, we've come before you now as a subdivision. We're proposing to put in a small cul-de-sac, bubble roadway, private road, with waivers requested to reduce the impacts to the area and for the single-family house. As you can see on the board, the existing house will remain on the lot. It's been reconfigured to go around the proposed cul-de-sac. That house will continue to have its frontage on Pemberton Street. It will also have access on Pemberton. The existing driveway goes out there. The second lot is showing off the rear of the cul-de-sac bubble. We're proposing to put in a 12-foot wide paved driveway, private way, with porous grass pavers on either side to give us a supported way of 20 feet wide. Those will be grassed over. They can support a vehicle to drive over it to get up to a 20-foot wide way. We have a drainage system for the house. We have underground drainage for the porous system. That's leaches underneath the surface, so that'll pick up all the driveway runoff. The site will be serviced by existing sewer service that's on Pemberton Street, already comes into the property. We'll put in a new water service for the proposed house. In your packet, we showed you in the plan set, we showed you what a roadway would look like with no waivers, putting in a full cul-de-sac and a 26-foot paved road with sidewalks, etc. You can see that it's only accessing one lot. Doesn't look like it would be prudent to put such a roadway in this small area. I can go through the waivers. There's about 9 or 10 of them. We can just go forward if you have any questions. This has been reviewed by Margaret Walker. We did do one round of revisions to try and address some of the comments. I know she still has some outstanding comments that we need to look at, but other than that, questions?
Why don't you go through the waivers?
Sure. The first waiver is we're requesting a waiver that the roadway would remain private. The second waiver is section B6 on the roadways. Waiver requested to allow the pavement width to be 12 feet. Requirement would be 26 feet. Third one is curbs and gutters. Requesting a waiver to construct a roadway with no curbing. Fourth one is sidewalks. Request a waiver for no sidewalks. Fifth one is the dimensional standards for the roadway and subdivisions. Waiver to allow the paved cul-de-sac turnaround not be built. Third one is for a traffic impact data analysis. Request a waiver. The eighth one is street trees. Request a waiver for no street trees. Next one is intersections. Request a waiver to allow the street to be constructed without a 30-foot rounding. Under your regulations, you're allowed, because of the angle of the street, you're allowed to reduce that to 20 feet. And performance guarantee, we're requesting a waiver not to put up a bond for construction of a private way. The last one was for certificate of monuments and an as-built plan and street acceptance plans, because there would be no acceptance of the road. It's going to remain private. The idea is there would be no mutual maintenance agreement between the two homeowners. Lot 2-2 would own the proposed roadway, private way in its entirety. They would also be required to do the maintenance on that roadway. People on lot 1 and 2 would have no rights to access or travel over that private way. Their existing frontage, or their new frontage, would still be on Pemberton Street. We did give you a legal letter from Rackham and Sawyer that discussed the frontage. I think that's in your packets as well. That was part of the filing. That's it.
Okay, start. The other side, Sarah?
Okay, do they, the second house, is there a reason not to keep the Pemberton address?
The new house?
Yeah.
I don't know who assigns the house numbers when they apply for the building permit, but there is no reason they couldn't have a Pemberton house number, absolutely. We would be in total.
I mean, other like similar situations where we have a two-lot.
You give it a Pemberton Street. Who assigns street numbers, Margaret, do you know?
Our office does.
Yeah. So Margaret's already made that recommendation that Pemberton, it has a street Pemberton address, and absolutely, we'd be in favor of that as well.
Provided there's a number available in between, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know what the
Maybe that's
numbering
a holdup.
system is.
Okay. Okay, and then would just suggest, like a special condition that the removal or relocation of the shed,
Yes.
like a condition of approval?
It's on there for the shed to be either relocated or removed.
Yeah, so just as a special condition. And are you requesting a waiver for the rounding? There's a 20-foot,
Doesn't require a waiver under your regulations as far as from what I've read. It
Uh-huh.
just says that the board has the ability to approve that.
Say that.
because,
If you read it, because of the acute angle of the street from one road to the other. So you have the ability to allow that to go down the 20-foot rounding on the right-of-way. That's in your subdivision regulations.
yeah,
I don't believe, it doesn't require a waiver as far as I could read. It just says that the board has the ability to approve a 20-foot rounding.
yeah. Just whenever there's that situation, the angle is helpful so that we can see it on the plan. But you've checked,
I think I gave you that angle once before. I did check it.
so I'm always asking for the
We
angle.
had that
I'm
conversation,
sorry.
I think, in the preliminary process.
Okay, and then there was a comment, I think from Maggie at one point, about the center line offset from Captiva Road.
I showed the center line for Captiva on the plan.
Yeah, so I see that and it's,
And they line
and
up,
it's,
they intersect right at the center line of Pemberton.
but the center line that you show, like from the circle, I see the center line, and then it seems to be offset a little bit from,
This is the center line here, and then the other one's back. right
yeah,
up.
I'm talking about for the proposed roadway.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Middle.
Comes in on that angle, that's the angle.
So is it center line of the driveway or center line of the proposed road? 'Cause
It's the
it-
center line of the proposed layout, not necessarily the paved road. Paved road just follows, it does not follow the center line directly.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the mouth of the, non-waiver plan. It seems like that center line is not center, it's,
No, it's centered. It's just because there's such a short distance of tangent there,
yeah,
hard to see, but it is centered.
okay,
That whole road is centered on the no waiver plan.
okay, all right.
I mean, I can review that and show Maggie in detail. You know, we're gonna sit and review a few other things as well. We can obviously review that too.
Okay, okay. And then,
Here's a full build of this sheet.
have we got a response from fire? They're okay with that?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything on our end.
I would be interested to make sure that they're okay with the driveway, especially the width and
Do we have a comment
turnaround.
from fire?
I don't think I had it. So, I would like to see that.
There we have it.
And those are my comments. Thank you.
Mark?
I don't, I mean, I'll be interested to see what the neighbors think, but I really don't have much of a problem with the way it's laid out here.
What?
Do we checked off on that sheet?
What, the fire? I know, it's here somewhere. Hey,
all the questions I had were answered already, so I'm good.
they're gonna shut off that mic in a second. There it is, found it. All right, Joe?
My question is about the waiver on the 30-foot rounding. 4-4 on intersections. Street lines at all intersections shall be rounded with a curve at each corner having a radius of not less than 30 feet.
Okay.
However, when the intersection of two ways varies more than 10 degrees from the right angle, the radius of the curve at the acute angle may be less. At the obtuse angle shall be greater than 20 feet to the extent approved or required by the board. So it's saying greater than 20 feet. Is the
On
difference
the
a 10?
obtuse side, on the big side.
Okay, but is that what we have?
I believe so.
And is there a 10-degree
You've got, let me see.
variation?
You've got, what I don't have on here is the angle.
I
But
can
you've
give
got
you
on,
that.
the big side, you've got 30 feet, and on the acute side, you've got 20.
What I don't have on here is the angle, the different, what that small angle is. But that's what he was referring to, that section.
So that plan has to show this.
I think it just has to be labeled.
Well, it does, you just have to interpret between the angles. There's two bearings, there's a bearing for the road and there's a bearing for Pemberton. You can see the angle. I mean, I can spell it out in more detail and give it to you in that sense. I
That
can
would
put
be-
the angle right on there.
That would be good,
That would be
that would be good only because across the mouth of the new street, part of it's a curve, so you don't
Yeah.
have a bearing.
I can put the angle right on the plan for you and make it simple. And the waiver we're asking for, as far as the 30-foot rounding, is for the pavement rounding. We need a waiver on the pavement rounding, because that needs to be 30 feet from the, on the intersections.
These two-lot subdivisions are becoming very prevalent with us, for a lot of filings lately. So the 30-foot rounding has been the killer for most of them, the ones that have been denied. So I would appreciate it if you give Maggie some type of a statement
Sure.
that takes care of that. And that's all I have, thank you.
Okay. It would be nice if you did show us the angles.
Yep.
So we're not with our protractors late at night. I'll read the comments that I should have read before. From the fire chief, the only thing we have from them is that they wanna name it Julie Way.
No, they didn't.
They
So
don't
we
want-
requested the name be either approved or denied by you. So it says,
We got something that said Julie sounded too much like jewelry.
well, where is,
Police don't want Julie.
okay, well, that's,
No one wants Julie.
well,
We did put in a request for
sorry.
street name, it was Julie Way.
sorry.
Julie's not gonna happen.
Okay. Well,
No, but
Not
not
gonna
why,
worry about a
not why
street
not
name
that,
for
why a
now.
street, why street name at all?
we'll,
Yeah. That's my question.
I agree.
Why name it at all?
Why have, if you're gonna have a Pemberton Street address?
Why don't you check and see if we can do a Pemberton address between now and the next
No,
meeting?
This is something these guys decide.
Oh, but you have to tell us if we have a house number. It's your
We can do that.
department, correct?
What do you have, do you have an
Excuse me?
address on your plan for the guys next door?
excuse me, Rob,
I'm sorry, Mr.
you
Chairman.
need it for the plan to get recorded.
Right, but
So you're
not-
gonna have to put it down, so we're gonna have to have a name,
Okay,
okay?
we'll just submit a new one.
What?
We'll submit a new request,
Okay. We don't have a Truax, do we?
not in this town,
Truex Way.
Foxborough.
Yeah, a lot of them down there.
Is
All right,
there?
Board of Health, April 19th, they voted that they have no new comments on the fact that you got a little bit of distance to bring your trash to the Pemberton Street, which, from the police department, they do not have any public safety concerns relative to the traffic. And that's it, they updated in June. Have Maggie's here. Board of Health, gonna comment on the plans again. Still didn't get one from them. We did have the original, but we don't have an updated one, which I think you're gonna need. From Conservation, there are no comments. They both reference property. Both of them said the same thing. I have one from, I have Tim's from the April 24th, which I assume is outdated. And I have one from the updated one on June 14th. And Maggie, you haven't gone through yours yet, have you? Okay.
Not the new ones anyway.
All right, okay, the new ones, and I just wanna make sure we got the right date, June 18th, and that's all I had for comments, from all the departments. Now I'll turn it over to Maggie and then Tim. Maggie?
Rob and I will meet to go over these, but a couple of the items I have, the waiver from, waiver number 10, I believe, has to do with performance guarantee. As this is a subdivision, I don't see how the board can grant a waiver. Legally, I don't see how that's possible. As far as waiver number 11 regarding street acceptance, I can understand a waiver from street acceptance plans because there is going to be no street acceptance, but to waive monuments and as-built plans, that, I don't, the monuments are needed for survey, and the as-built plans are our permanent record for that subdivision. As little as it is, it's still a subdivision. We're recommending a Pemberton Street address. We will put it in our books as a new street, but the reality of life is it's gonna, even though it's a street with a waved cross-section, it's going to look like a driveway. So as long as there's an address space, and I believe there is, we will give it a permitted street address. We can go over later on, the few drainage comments I have. I know sewer, depending on the length, you're gonna need at least one in length, just because it's long, and probably a meter pit if you're that far back from the street. And what did you say you're gonna do with O and M plans? Typically with private way subdivisions, there's a mutual maintenance and an O and M plan.
So the O and M would only go to the person who owns lot 2 to maintain the drainage system. There'll be no mutual maintenance agreements, because they're gonna own the roadway and they're gonna own the maintenance of it. They're gonna be responsible.
So then they won't do any particular, Mr. Chairman, any particular typical subdivision documents? I believe this happened with the Baker Street subdivision. They didn't do the typical private way documents. It just was all on the plan and covenanted that there were notes that had to be put on the plan and in the deed and all of that.
Yeah, if it's on the one, just like retention basins on a regular subdivision,
Okay.
they gotta clean it up, but there was something that just said that struck a little thing, is that the road's gonna be owned by the back lot, but you are gonna have easements for the front lot.
For what purpose?
Then you don't have a subdivision, you have a driveway,
Well, then we'll grant them an easement.
you're gonna need it. You can't pretend it doesn't exist, right? So you're gonna have to have it, cause guy says you can't come on here anymore.
We can grant them an easement.
You're gonna have to
But
grant.
they're not gonna maintain it.
Yeah, you're familiar with someone else who kept the fee interest, but you grant someone else easements?
Okay.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Maggie.
And I'm fine for now, because most of these are changes to drainage and plans and items like that that we can put on the plans.
What about
Tim?
the other waivers?
I had comments on a couple of the waivers, if you want me to go over those, I can briefly. Waiver number 2 regarding with the 12 feet, that's the only objection I have to that, is to what the fire department says, because typically they want a driveway or a roadway to be at least 20 feet wide. I don't have any issues if they don't. Waiver number 5, same thing with the turnaround. Waiver number 7 regards the traffic study, and I just wanna make sure that if the board grants the waiver from the traffic study, that the site distance measurements should still be included. That's the only thing, for small subdivisions, the live traffic studies aren't really applicable, except for the site distance requirements. And then waiver number 8 regarding street trees, if the board approves that, they should consider that a compensatory donation be made to the street tree fund, if you're not gonna be doing street trees here. And waiver number 10, the question I had to do with the fact that I don't think they can waive the performance guarantee because it's a subdivision. And then number 11, I already went over.
Yeah, no, that's the one I was, agree 100% on that. So, you all set, Joe, with Maggie and the waivers?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Tim?
Comments on waiver request number 1, that the comment letter notes that the owner of lot B will retain ownership, and there should be some legal documentation on that, obviously for reporting purposes. No additional comments on waivers 2, 3, 4, and 5. For just a driveway, I agree with the town engineer. On waiver number 10, they talk about you have a grade that's marginal at 0.8, but it does still direct stormwater onto the public way, and I'd like to just talk on that. Maybe I'm missing something, that we're not gonna be directing any stormwater onto the street. And the performance guarantee, I think, should also be required. Request number 11. As-built plans and monumentation, I think, again, I agree with the town engineer, should be required. That's what I have.
Okay. All right.
Monumentation is required by land court anyway. This is a land court parcel. So they're gonna have to go in regardless, so that point at this.
We don't wanna get away from treating these like a guy's driveway, so the bond, the only thing you're not doing is the full road and all that stuff.
That's fine.
But we still need all that stuff. To waive that I don't think is smart on our end. And that's what my comments. Anybody have any questions, comments relative to 173? If you do, could you come up to the microphone?
Tom Mulroy, I live at 161 Pemberton. I'm a butter to the lot side. We moved into Walpole 20 years ago with that lot next door, under the belief that due to lack of frontage, it would be a lot next door for as long as we were here. From the plan I have seen, this plan of building puts this house back basically in my backyard. So as I step out my back deck, sit in my backyard, there's gonna be a house right there, over on me. Doing that, it also, if you put in a street, private or otherwise, it puts me in a corner lot, something else I wasn't looking for. My understanding was from a previous meeting here, the attorney spoke, said back in the 80s, 98 lots were changed up there. The zoning was changed, 96 of those lots conformed to that zoning change at the time. Only 2 didn't. These would be the 2, I guess. So here we are 30 years later. 20 years of it, I believe that I would be good with where I was. So I'm just not understanding how this would be beneficial to the neighborhood, me in particular. I don't really want to go out in the backyard and see this house looking at me. I do see it as a bit of a financial hardship to myself going forward when I go to sell. Being a home right there in the backyard, I think it would be detrimental to my value. So I do not wish to see the structure built as planned. That's how it's drawn.
Okay. Relative to the zoning change, what changed was, one of the things was the frontage, and they went in front of the zoning board, and they got shot down.
Correct.
They do meet all they're asking from us is don't make a full road build-out. They can do it legally. So nothing has changed from 82 to now, so what they have in front of us is legal. What they're trying to do is creep it down so it doesn't look like a full-blown basketball court there.
Still, you know, if I understand it correctly, there'll still be a house in the backyard and
Yeah.
a street on the corner.
But they have that right based upon, they meet all the
Based
zoning.
upon
They're
the
not asking,
change.
any of the waivers we're giving is just more for construction. It's not, we're not giving any waivers for setbacks or for frontage and all that.
Understood.
And what they've decided to do is just to do it like this and have it, naturally, it's less money for them and also kind of limits what everyone else in the neighborhood sees, so.
In the long run, setback-wise, it would have been more preferential to have it next door than in the backyard, had I known.
Yeah,
This is the worst of the 2 choices, it seems.
I know, the best choice would have been just if they'd got the variance, they could have made it blend in with everybody else. But that didn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, I now am now paying the price for that they didn't take the change 30 years ago.
Yep.
Can we condition some type of screening?
No, not a subdivision. This isn't a site plan. And the screening, because there's no, we don't know, there's no, what do you call it, Joe?
With the applicant?
What I'm saying is, just so you understand, we don't have
Right.
the, what do you call it, buffer. The only buffer between commercial and residential.
Or would the applicant be amenable
No,
to doing
wanna ask?
something?
Sitting there. Johnny?
Applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question later.
Okay. John? Screens? Screening? Questions been asked?
We could, I mean, it's going to be a driveway, so we'll minimize the cutting on the way in, and, I think there's a lot more screening with a single driveway than with a full-blown cul-de-sac.
I don't think the screening is as much on the side as it would be in the
Edge of
back,
the property.
In the
where the
back?
house is.
What's in the back?
We can use the street trees and.
Put them in the back?
Pardon?
Then put them, use the street trees? Yeah.
We can put a different type of tree that would provide screening to the neighbors rather than putting street trees just along the driveway.
All right,
We
so
could use
we'll-
that. If that waiver is granted, we could use that towards putting a buffer of trees.
Well, there'll be street trees that's not on the street.
Correct.
So, you understand what they want, we can do there? Now, the type, we will get that from Rob.
You can ask them.
I mean, the best that.
Well, you want, it'll be evergreens, right? You know.
Evergreens and
So then they would fill it in with height.
Yep.
the green giants, they hold up to the deer and blue spruce.
Well, we'll ask Mr. LeBlanc what he recommends to fill in and everything else that's deer unfriendly.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Given that you got a few more things to do, right? Oh, I'm sorry.
So regarding the question of frontage, frontage of lot 1, is that shown on the new road?
You gotta add it up.
They made an argument that it's still on cumbersome when it's state frontage. I don't know that we accept that argument.
Both roads. We
You have legal frontage on the new road.
Once your frontage as far as your house facing and your front yard and side yard. That's what the letter from the attorney.
Yeah, but once you've created a subdivision, you need legal frontage on the new road.
Yeah, and we have legal frontage on both roads.
All right, so we gotta do the tangent.
And then,
Start.
Remember, you don't have to have the frontage at the street line. You can have 80% of the street and 100% of the setback.
okay, so that, is that shown on the plan? That's shown on the plan.
I don't know if it's shown for the new road, but it is definitely shown for the subdivision.
It's not, it's shown for the.
It's shown for
town,
Pemberton, but
it's
not
on
the new
other
road.
side. You need to
It's shown
put it.
for both.
Okay, so, yeah, please add that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, you gotta get that on there. I don't know what's going on with everybody now. You're about the fourth, it seems the last couple of months, it doesn't like to put the frontage on the new road. Must be a lot of extra effort, I guess. All right, you got a little work to do, and the next meeting is the 19th, and we're jammed, right?
July 19th?
No, we're jammed there.
Jammed tonight.
Yeah, and you're one of the reasons. Nicholas. Well, we don't know. Maybe they may pull. Oh, well, I don't know if we can do
Talk
that.
amongst your clients.
No, I meant you can add them, I don't mean to take Nichols off.
No, okay, but all right, you going forward, Nichols, on the 19th?
I can't answer that this evening.
You
I
can't
don't.
because you don't know, or you won't tell me?
Can't because I don't know.
Okay. All right, then, we'll go to August. Okay,
Let's try, Kate.
how many we got in August? Nobody, right? All right.
7:30, August 16th.
No, Sarah's gonna tell me 7:15, right? 7:15, how's that?
7:15.
Yep. Okay, we'll continue this public hearing on August, what's it? 16th at 7:30 p.m., 7:15 p.m.
Do you need a time waiver?
We need extension up through the end of August.
Sure.
Okay, make a motion to accept the extension to take action as requested by the applicant up through August 31st.
Second.
I gotta get the date, 2018. It said the 19, John, you'd be a little mad. Okay, we have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. See you at the end of the summer. Except for you, Rob. Yeah, go ahead. You wanna take 5? Yep. Continue public hearing. If anybody's here for Rustic Road, we have from the applicant. They're requesting a continuance to their public hearing scheduled for June 21st as they're working on revised plans. And they gave us an extension up through September 30th, 2018. I'll make a motion to allow acceptance.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that's accepted.
Mr. Chairman,
And
he actually wanted to be on in July if possible. Is that not true?
I'm sorry?
Didn't he want to be on in July? That was
He
just an
asked that-
extension?
He asked for he asked our first meeting in July, but
About August then? No?
yeah, because he asked, we're working on the plans, we'll be ready at the next scheduled hearing, but I mean, he's going out through the end of September, so my guess, he didn't say what date, but,
he's not gonna have a full board that night, and he's already missing Mark.
This is true.
and on top of it is a big night, so. All right, I'll make a motion, we'll continue this public hearing to August 16th. Yeah, what's that? Or do you wanna go further?
Well, he's gonna have a three-person board.
3?
No Mark.
Oh, I didn't know Mark's
Nobody
in.
else,
Why am I not gonna be here?
'cause you missed the first one.
Oh, so I have to
Oh.
recuse.
You can ask questions.
Why don't we do this?
He chose to go forward. On May 3rd, he chose to go forward without Mark.
Yeah,
as a
okay,
full-person
okay.
board.
Well, we'll continue to then. In the meantime, we can ask him if he wants, he has a choice to go, we have an opening, we'll give it to him.
Okay.
And if not, he's all set through the 30th, so at that night, if he wants to go up sometime in September, we can do it.
7:15 or
7:01.
7:01.
He's not gonna go through. You understand, Mark won't be here.
Well, I'll be there, but I won't be here.
I can't vote. You can't, he'll be here, but he can't vote, so we're gonna have to, chances are he's gonna have to continue, that's all. Because chances are he'll just continue to September with a full, with 4. All right? Yep, on September, August 16th, okay. And then I'm sure he'll continue.
You want a second?
Yeah, we'll do a second.
Second.
All right, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, August 16th at 7:01 PM. Be on time. Didn't I say 7:01? Yeah. No, I said be on time. Pretty soon Sarah want me to do like 7:30.
No, 7:01 is good.
7:29.
7:01 is good. 7:05, even 7:05, 7:15, we'll be happy with those.
All right, okay. The hour being after 7:35, we have 1350 North Street, case number 1805, site plan approval. And with that, I'll read the public hearing notice dated May 3rd. There will be a meeting on May 3rd, which we continued on an application from David Allen, 72 Chestnut Street, case number 1805. We respect the property at 1350 North Street, shown on Assessors Map 5, parcel 52, zoning district rural. This applicant seeking site plan review under section 13 for the construction of 100-student elementary daycare, 36 parking stalls, access, egress driveways, and utilities, as plan shown on 1350 North Street, and dated November 17, 2017 by Gloucester Engineering, and with structural notes drawn by TLH Consulting and Miller Design of Belmont. And the plans may be viewed at our office. With the hearing open, it is open. I'll explain. I know most of you have never been here before. We're gonna take this to a little about 9. At the last, we'll give the last 10 minutes, so everybody here, please hold your questions to the end, and then we'll take them at the end. That way you get to hear everything, and everybody get their turn at speaking. What will happen is the applicant will come up, introduce himself, introduce the plan to all of us, go through it. After he's done his presentation, I will read the comments from all the different boards in the town that have to comment on this, and then we will give our own comments, and then at the conclusion of that, we'll open it up to the public. So I just ask that you just keep your questions to the end. Everybody get a chance to speak. With that being said, hearing is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Peter Brooks. I'm a lawyer with the firm of Saul Ewing in Boston. I represent the applicant. I'd like to begin first by just introducing the players from your left to right. It's Keith Miller, the architect, David Allen, the owner of the property, Maureen Mazzola is going to be the operator and the owner of the child care facility, John Glassa, the engineer you know, and somewhere Jack Gillen, our traffic engineer, is right here. I know there's a lot of interest, concern, controversy about the historic structure that is on this site. And I'm just going to ask the board at the outset to keep in mind that's a matter before the Historic Commission. It's not an issue for site plan review this evening. And if we can keep this focused on the site plan and keep the historic issue to the commission, I think we can get through this more expeditiously. I would like to begin by setting what I think is the legal framework. I know the board's familiar with it, but I thought it might be helpful just to restate it. This is a use that's exempt from most zoning under the so-called Dover Amendment, Chapter 40A, Section 3. The site plan permit cannot be denied by this board. It can be reasonably conditioned. Those conditions cannot nullify the exempt use. They cannot make it economically unfeasible. And those conditions must relate to only certain aspects of the site development, those being the bulk and height of the structure, determining yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. There are quite a few cases that have been decided in Massachusetts about what the planning board can do with its conditions and what it can't do. If we get into that, I'm happy to discuss those cases and what issues are appropriate for consideration and what are not. But I think at this point, it's probably premature to do that. I'd like to turn it over to Maureen to explain what this project is and what her plan is, and then we'll let John take over the actual site plan. Thank you.
Pardon me. I wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. I had originally anticipated that this meeting would offer an opportunity to kind of introduce myself, share some of my previous professional experiences, and introduce our vision for the property located at 1350 North Street. The brief overview would then be coupled with our extensive site and architectural plans following. This, the governing body, would make the most informed decision and with enlightened understanding to meet the needs of Walpole families. I genuinely still hope this is the case given the current climate that I have been experiencing surrounding this property, and I am truly hopeful that by the conclusion of this board and even our community will appreciate our desired intent, which wholeheartedly is to share our years of expertise coupled with our vision, pardon me, and how it will benefit all of the families here. So as I was introduced, my name is Maureen Mazzola. I have been working in the field of licensed group care, pardon me, in early education formally since 1996. Prior to that, I worked in the private sector for families, providing, excuse me, tutoring, individual care and education, and assisting families with newborn care. I am Director 2 certified through the state of Massachusetts, as well as lead infant, toddler, and preschool certified. I have taught all age groups. I have mentored in all age groups, and I have loved every minute of my positions. My experience has allowed me to build teams of loving, enthusiastic, and accountable educators who put children first, resulting in both highly desirable schools for families and faculty, as well as ensuring a fiscally sound operation, leading to long-term success. While managing schools for other organizations has been very rewarding, I've sought to create a school where inquiry-based learning can be coupled with a blend of open-ended and practical life skill concept curricula, leading to paths of success for children. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, children should experience at least 2 hours of physical activity a day. When delving further into the recommendation, it is found that children in fact benefit most when they are more likely to be outdoors and not teacher-led through activity, but allowed to actually explore themselves through the materials around them. It is with a coupling of this philosophy and Reggio Emilia approach to education and curriculum that we've chosen this specific site in Walpole. What better place to be learning than outdoors? And this property offers that opportunity for children. In researching potential locations, and we did many, we took several factors into consideration. Given our future school's mission and philosophy, the physical location was an essential part of the decision-making process. As we see when we look around the town, most all of the schools that educate Walpole's children are found in neighborhoods, which makes sense because we're all part of this larger community. And technically we're all neighbors. The little people that we will be educating, or that we seek to educate and offer this opportunity to, will then hopefully, based on their experience with us, have an appreciation for the nature and their surroundings and all that is encompassed therein because of the property itself and then the school that's built upon it. Much like the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics, we at Little Things Academy desire to offer children, a plethora of open-ended, culturally vibrant, historically inspired outdoor experiences in which to learn, play, grow, and develop. And I'm more than happy to speak at a future date further into the curricula itself and how the land ties into how the children learn and the opportunities that are provided. Due to this specific location and its natural surroundings, while in the school, children will be positively affected by the building's architectural design as well. Each classroom is intentionally designed with full glass emergency egress doors and their own fully operational large windows that not only let in fresh air, but also invite children to explore the outdoors via their multiple senses. I can say as a teacher that watching a child look on and wonder for the very first time while a bird sings or a bunny hops by, it's a gift in and of itself. This scenic location offers children a safe and enriching experience regardless of where they are physically located on the property. Prior to purchasing this specific address solely with the intent of bringing this school to fruition, we did research the needs of Walpole families. After months of conversations, it became clear there's both a need as well as a desire for a more organic approach to early education and care. While we don't begin to think that we have all of the answers to a happy childhood, we do believe that with more than 2 decades of experience, coupled with our genuine love for children, allows us to speak a very similar conversation in a very different way. Children deserve a thoughtful school experience that respects the style in which they learn, and not the other way around. We intend to pair indoor and outdoor experiences so children feel less like they are at school and more like they're where they want to be, which is playing. Little do they know that while they are simply playing and exploring around them, they're also learning skills that will aid them for an entire lifetime. Our slogan is simple, and it ties into all of it. Little Things Academy, because it's actually all the little things that matter. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is John Glossa Engineering, 46 East Street in East Walpole, and I'm just going to go over the site plan. First, I'll start with the existing conditions plan. So here's a copy of the existing conditions plan here. As the legal ad said, this is Assessor's Parcel 5-52. The zoning here is rural. And as you can see, this lot is on the corner of North Street and Bubbling Brook Road. So you're probably familiar with it, and everyone's probably familiar with it, but I'm going to go over it anyway. If we headed out of here and we went up Fisher Street, turns into North Street, we kind of drive along for a while, kind of get up to the top of that hill before we head down towards the Bubbling Brook Restaurant. And Bubbling Brook Road is the road on the right. Bubbling Brook Road was laid out originally in the early 1980s. George Tebow was the developer. I believe there's maybe 24, 28 lots on Bubbling Brook Road. And then at the very end of it, it connects to Trailside Drive and goes into Westwood, where I believe that Trailside connects to Marjorie Lane. The lot, according to the deed and the plan, is 54,445 square feet. And as I said, it's on the corner of North Street and Bubbling Brook Road. North Street is a county layout and was laid out in 1937 by the Norfolk County on behalf of the town. There are two direct abutters to the property. Shockett is to the north, and then an abutter at number 3 Bubbling Brook Road, Majeski and Hickman to the west. The existing lot has a 2-bedroom, single-family house served by a gravel driveway in the front, coming off of North Street, connected to town water by a water service line. Sewage disposal for the current house is a cesspool. I've been involved with this house for some time because originally the original owner, or the owner at the time, Phil Breen, had hired me to draft septic system upgrade plans for the purpose of selling the house. So I've been involved with this probably for at least 4 years. The lot slopes from the front up near North Street at about elevation 100. Now, this is just an assumed base. It's not based on any USGS or vertical datum, but just an assumed base that we use. To the back at about elevation 82. And as you can see from the plan, about half of the lot is open lawn, maintained as lawn, and then about half of it is lightly to moderately wooded. It looks like it was lawn that maybe over time kind of was overgrown. So North Street has no sidewalk in this area. Bubbling Brook has a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side, on the side where this lot exists. As I said, there's municipal water, not only in North Street, which was redone a few years ago, but there's also a water main in Bubbling Brook Road. Eversource provides electric to the site. There's no gas or other utilities available at this site. So I've done a number of test pits in this location. I did this lot. I did number 3 Bubbling Brook. I did number 7 Bubbling Brook. Bubbling Brook Road typically is not a good place for septic systems, not a good place for drainage, except right in this area. The test pits here showed perk rates of 3 minutes an inch to 8 minutes an inch. That might not mean a lot to somebody, but 2 minutes an inch is the fastest perk rate that the Title V will allow you. So if you have something less than that, you have to bump it up to 2. But when Title V for new construction allows you to go up to 60 minutes an inch. So here we have perk rates of 3 minutes an inch, 8 minutes an inch. We categorize the soil as a coarse sandy loam. But there is a high water table in this area, relatively high, 28 inches in the 2 test pits on this site here. And similar results were found at number 3 and number 7 Bubbling Brook Road. So the proposal is to, and I'm going to switch now to the presentation plan. So the proposal is to construct a building It'll be 115 feet, 9.5 inches wide by 55 feet, 3 inches deep, to serve as a daycare for 100 children and infants. The building's set back from North Street approximately 89 feet and from 49 feet from Bubbling Brook Road. The school will be about 52.5 feet from the Shakik property and 104 feet from the Majestic Hickman property. There'll be a parking area in the front of the building for 36 vehicles. 2 of those will be handicapped accessible spaces. There'll be 2 curb cuts, one in and one out from North Street. There will be no curb cut from Bubbling Brook Road. There'll be a play area at the rear of the building that's approximately 125 feet wide by 55 feet deep. The building's surrounded by a 5-foot sidewalk on all sides. And there's a landscape plan. You can see some of these renderings. The entire site will be professionally landscaped with shrubs, trees, hedges, lawn areas, and an area planted on the slope in the back here with a wildflower mix, which usually gets mowed twice a year. As far as the utilities, the building will be reconnected to the municipal water system, or connected to the municipal water system, most likely using the same connection that's already there. A new on-site sewage disposal system in accordance with Title V will be constructed to accommodate 500 gallons a day, which is what you need for 100 students for a daycare. And that will meet all of the requirements of Title V for new construction. So is the drain system that's behind the septic system, so that the septic system is here, and then there's an underground drainage system here. So the underground drainage system, which is going to consist of 2 drainage swales. So from our parking area here, we're going to collect the water in swales on either side of the building. These are grassed so that they have the ability to sort of capture some of the solids, the sand and the silt and the other sediments that run off of the parking lot. Then there's going to be, on each side, there's a catch basin on each side, and those catch basins will have 4 bays. So what that means is those catch basins are actually raised up a little bit from the ground that will be around them, so that at least 1/2 inch of runoff from the paved areas, from the rooftop, and from the grassed areas will soak into the ground. By doing that, that again filters out the sediments, and then when there's storms that would create more than that 1/2 inch, the water would rise up and go into these catch basins here and here, and then into this underground infiltration basin. The underground infiltration basin will mitigate all of the flows in accordance with DEP standards. So this has been designed to the same requirements as if we were 100 feet from wetlands and we were in front of the Conservation Commission. So it'll be designed, it's designed in that way, so all of the water in this location, in the proposed condition up to the 25-year storm, will stay in the basin and not, there won't be any outflow at all. And then after the 25-year storm, and I can't really tell you which one, but at the 100-year storm, it starts to come out, we know that. But we're only required to investigate the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm. So the building will be connected to the electric underground, to the Eversource Electric, most likely from one of these utility poles that's in the front. And then there's a dumpster here for trash removal that's in this location here. So I believe copy that describes the existing conditions, the proposal, and I would be available if you had any direct questions for myself.
All set?
All done.
All right, I'll read the comments from various boards. All right, from Board of Health, April 19th. Yep, okay. Board of Health is meeting, voting unanimously. They are not in a position to comment because they're important items. The board does not have information about, specifically a septic plan. The plan must account for the client's staff and a 100-spot daycare operation. Septic system will be influenced by not only that, but whether or not the facility will prepare its own food and have a laundry on site. The board is concerned about the location of the recycling and dumpster area, making sure it's properly sized, located in a gate to prevent issues with neighbors. There is a safe play, area because it would appear from the plan submitted that the play area may be located where the septic system may be and could pose a problem for the Board of Health. The Board of Health also required that proposed sidewalks, crosswalks, and lighting and other measures are taken. So, and that was dated 19th of April. Any updates, John?
You know, unfortunately, the Board of Health used to notify myself of their meetings when they were gonna take these up, but apparently they stopped that policy, so I'll find out on that. I'm sure that all those things.
This is two separate things, correct?
What's that?
They review our plans, all right? But it's up to you as the applicant to go to them and make an appointment for your septic system. This is a comment to us, what they have, but what they're saying right now is nobody from your group has gone to see them to present the septic. It's two different things.
Well, there's a septic system plan.
But it hasn't been presented to the Board of Health.
No, we normally wouldn't do that because typically things get moved around and whatever. So if I go there and pay the fee and give it to them,
Okay,
and
but
then
let's
things
stop
get
right there.
moved, now I have to go back.
John, your comment, I'm gonna keep the comments brief. Your comment was they didn't notify you. I said they didn't have to because of this. This is a comment to
No,
us.
I'm not saying that they have to. I'm just saying as a courtesy in the past, I was always notified when they were gonna take these up at their meetings.
Well, all comments? So you must go to a lot of board meetings then, right?
If they take up,
Subdivisions too, you're there?
yeah,
Okay. Water and sewer dated April 11th. The water sewer concurs with comments of the town engineer. And the flow test on the water main should be required. From conservation, I have one April 12th and updated June 14th. On the 12th of April, they said the site plan may require land disturbance due to being over 40,000 square feet of land, and it now said on the 14th of June, it will require a land disturbance plan.
well, I think that's in the development impact statement.
It's what?
It's right in the development impact statement
Well,
that it's required.
I'm reading their comments. From the zoning board of appeals, there are no comments on the above referenced matter. And they did it on the 14th of May and the 7th of June. And the 26th of March, so we got three for there. Those are Tim's. Police Department, I have one, I'll read May 2nd first. The plans have been reviewed for public safety, and the Walpole Police do not have any safety concerns in relation to the traffic in this case filed with the town of Walpole's Planning Board. And the same thing was reiterated back on June 3rd, same thing. They have no safety issues with this. Fire Department, I have one on the, a couple here. We'll start with May 2nd. Fire Department reviewed the above application and offers the following comments. We request that the applicant's waiver for a traffic study be denied. Will the start times be staggered, or will all attendees be scheduled to show up at the same time? Is there sufficient parking to accommodate all vehicles? What is the potential for drop-off pickup being installed on North Street? We request the applicant provide documentation showing that the Walpole fire apparatus will be able to appropriately access the parking lot and attaches their radius. And we request that all proposed plantings and signs be set far back enough that they not impede the line of sight. So that was on May 2nd. An update, and he said the traffic study does not specify whether students will be brought to the school by I'm sorry, the traffic study does not specify when the students will be brought to school, but rather generalize that the proposed daycare will exhibit the same characteristics of other facilities. Will the attendees be dropped off and picked up at staggered times, or is there potential all students showing up at the same time and overburdening the parking lot? Prior to the site plan approval, we request the applicant provide documentation showing that the apparatus will be able to access around the parking lot. And the final one is once again, we request that all proposed landscaping be set back so not to impede fire apparatus. And the latest one of June 6th, the same thing again, without talking about the landscaping. I have one from, that's Maggie's, and I got an update from Board of Health, and it said on May 29th, the Board of Health does not meet until Tuesday, June 19th, therefore won't have any comments until this date. And I don't believe we had got any update. Those are Tim's, those are Maggie's, and those are Maggie's. So the final ones we have are both Tim and Maggie. So your turn, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can pick which ones you feel most.
Yeah, I'll summarize, because these have been provided to the applicant and the applicant's engineer. I believe you received them.
Yes.
Okay. I originally had a comment on the overflow for the stormwater management system connecting directly to Bubbling Brook. The plan has been modified, as Mr. Glass indicated. However, the DAS does note there will be an overflow on page 6, and I think that engineering should confirm that. I then had a comment on the stormwater for the parking lot. It appears that the intent is to sheet flow the stormwater across the paved surface, generally from the street to 2 stormwater management basins on either side of the building. I didn't see any catch basins, and that just says to me that that parking area will have to be very well graded to make some of the runs, because they're rather significant. I'd asked for a photometric plan to show that the lighting is suitable. The landscaping plan was provided. Signage, no building signage, interior traffic control signage was provided, and I think that's important, and I see that the traffic engineer is here, so I'm hoping we can hear from him. We did have a traffic narrative, and plan on file doesn't have parking spaces clearly defined, and the parking field is not identified as identifying dedicated spaces, and I believe we'll hear from that tonight. I hope we do. The traffic study was revised by Mr. Gillen, dated April 19, 2018, and he indicated that the 36 spaces exceed the recommended number for this type of use, based upon the Institute of Traffic Engineers and the Urban Land Institute. And well, I've seen them historically, they've been very accurate, and I was very surprised, but I've found them to be accurate. Mr. Gillen, I believe, is going to talk a little bit about the impacts of North and Fisher Street intersection and Main Street, and if the numbers are correct, the impact should be minimal. I believe that at town meeting, the Historical Commission's 6-month delay was recently extended to 1 year by the annual town meeting, and it has to be determined if this extension impacts this application.
Okay, Maggie?
Okay. I suppose everybody knows this North Street's a scenic way, so if you have any stone wall or tree impacts above a certain size in the public way, we require a scenic road hearing. And just so you know, we are paving this section of North Street later this summer, after the 4th of July, after school gets out. And as such, a 5-year moratorium against excavation attaches once this is paved. So if you have any possible way to get your water services, even before the site plan is approved, the water department won't have an issue with you running a water service. But once that road is paved, you're not gonna be able to excavate it without a filing with the Board of Selectmen, and they typically are very loath, although they take every case individually. So basically what you'd have to do is go and present to them why they should let you excavate into a road that's literally just been paved. Depending on what kind of curbing you're proposing at the driveways, we don't like, nor do we allow cement concrete curbing into the public way. And I'm hoping part of the traffic study will address, or maybe you can address the adequacy of the parking. I understand it's a 36-car parking lot, but it's unclear how many staff, if half of those spaces are taken for staff, for instance, and there's only, say, 20 spaces left for families dropping off 100 children. My big concern, the biggest concern I have with traffic for this is what's gonna happen if people cannot get in or there are no spaces. People stopping on North Street, it's such a narrow street. I'm presuming Mr. Gillen can address that when he gets that far. As far as, Mr. Higgins mentioned, and you did take away the connection to Bubbling Brook Road's drainage system, because the town does, like I told you, has a stormwater, storm drain connection policy, which does not allow a connection from an overflow of this type. The only thing we have to make sure now is that your system, depending on what size, underground system you install, it has to be big enough to sufficiently keep it the runoff on site and not overflow, because if you have an overflow, all it's gonna do is run overland into Bubbling Brook, and it's not the intent to overburden the existing street just because you can't connect into the underground system. One thing I do need from you at some point, and I will mention this once, and it's nothing you have to do address right now. I'll need something that shows that you've got a septic system here and a drainage system here, that there's sufficient separation so that the septic effluent doesn't end up in your storm drain system.
It's in Title V, I can show it to
Yeah.
you.
And then we've gotta have at least, and I know you said this high groundwater, but the planning board, I believe the typical requirements for, it's in DEP, there's gotta be 2-foot minimum for the.
There is.
Yep.
I'll show
Okay,
you.
I'm assuming site distances are field measured, I would assume Mr. Dolan can address that when he speaks. And, I think Mr. Higgins addressed a couple of my comments, we can go over these at some point.
Okay, sure.
The plan requirement.
Yeah, and we can talk about the digging in the road, because I think we'd prefer to get that done sooner rather than later. We don't want
Yep.
we don't wanna have to dig up a new road.
No, and I know you said you had a 1-inch service there that's now, but I'm not sure what you're gonna need for a fire line, or if you're gonna need one, or if you're gonna put a new line, I'm not sure so.
Okay, all right.
That's only an FYI, because we're gonna be paving it right
I-
after probably the week of the 4th of July.
Okay, appreciate that.
The sprinklers.
I don't know.
Sarah, you're up?
Sure.
Because Joe's can't wait. but-
Oh, do I?
No, it's Sarah's turn, I believe. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I do? No, I'm sorry, I forgot Tim. Maggie, I've been flip-flopping. Tim, go ahead.
I'm done.
You done?
He went before me.
You went.
All right.
Okay, so I have a couple questions, but I have like 2 big issues outstanding, and that one of them is the septic and going through the Board of Health. That's extremely important, and I wouldn't want to vote on anything before I saw their
Okay. I'll file it with the Board of Health.
answer
You realize I
approval
probably do 2 of these a week with the Walpole Board of Health.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
I'll file it with them. Like I said, I was just trying to save the client a little time and money, because if things kind of get moved around a little bit, then I have to refile the plan with them. Not that they require the full fee again, but they do have a revision fee. So that's all, it's fine.
Right,
The
but
septic
you-
system is, it's a conventional system. It meets all the requirements of Title V.
Okay. And you have the leach field right where the playground is also, so.
So there's most people's leach fields are under their backyards, their front yards, or their
Okay.
side yards.
Okay,
The
I would like
DEP
to
does
see
not,
the Board of Health.
really, in fact, if you read Title V, they'll tell you they don't really want them under paved areas, because leach fields need to breathe a bit, right? So you don't put them under pavement. If you do, they need to be vented. Typically, ones under pavement fail quicker than ones that are not under pavement. There's no public health issue with a septic system that is working and is under, your lawn or anywhere. So there's no problem. There's no vent on this system. There's no odor, so I
Okay,
don't think
okay.
that it's an issue at all.
Yeah, and just want to highlight a couple of things that they noted on their April 19th memo, is that they need to know, are you doing laundry on site? Are you cooking on site? Just make sure that it's appropriately sized, and whatever is needed is able to fit on site.
Right.
Okay, so that's a big question for me, outstanding issue. And then also fire access, to make sure that the fire department believes that they can safely address this daycare should any emergencies arise.
Did I hear you correctly? I'm sorry. Did they give you the turning radiuses now, or no?
Yeah.
Is that what they said? Okay. Because they didn't have them,
He attached it to his comments.
okay. Okay.
So those are my two big issues, but then just in general, I have a couple comments. So as was suggested by, I believe it was Maggie, I would be in favor of having the traffic study peer reviewed to make sure that, that it's a safe environment for everybody. And I just wanted to bring up the issue she brought up about the 5-year moratorium. This is very time sensitive for you to take a look at that. Couple questions on the developmental impact statement. Just one thing on the fiscal impact. I think it was an error. You wrote post-construction. I think it should be pre-construction under B. And I have a question for you on C. You note that the property values are expected to increase. Just wanted to know, like, how you came to that conclusion. You have.
I don't have, can I put that in front of me?
Yeah, it's just the developmental impact statement, and one of the questions is about property values, surrounding property values. And it was noted that you believed that it would stay the same or increase. So I just wanted to know on what basis you concluded that.
So I believe we consulted with an appraiser, is that what we?
Well, if you, before you just throw things in, submit your documentation to back that up.
Okay.
All right, just
Yeah,
can't say,
I get it.
everybody's gonna write, yeah, it's all gonna increase. We believe you, we trust you, but document it, please.
Okay.
Okay, the next question is about, building exits. We were given plans quite a while ago, I think in May, that showed several exits around the building. But these new plans don't seem to indicate that, is that, but then when, is it Maureen? Yeah, when she spoke, I thought she mentioned that each classroom has a glass door. So are those exits still existing all around the building?
Yeah, I believe there's a 5-foot sidewalk all the way around the building that the doors open up onto. That's why the building's surrounded by a sidewalk.
Okay.
So on a previous plan that we did, it actually showed the doors?
I believe so, yeah, I think you submitted to us some architectural drawings.
Okay.
So that was there. It's not really a planning board issue, but I'm sure the Department of Education or something might
Yeah.
have something to say about having an exit door for every classroom. I don't know, just, it would make me nervous if my child was in a classroom with a door that could be accessed. All right, and then also from the architectural plans, it was shown the number of bathrooms. I didn't see anything that was like for staff or anything, so each staff has to go inside a classroom to use a bathroom?
The architect is
No.
here. You're
Oh.
kind of outside of my,
There are no staff bathrooms. 2 adult bathrooms, and that's sufficient.
Yeah, the plans are designed to be
Okay. There was also no like break room or playroom, anything for the children. So also it was mentioned about physical activity is very important, which I would agree with. Just want to call attention that you need to plan for rain and cold and snow to have a place for the children to, it will be addressed. There's an indoor gym? Oh, okay, maybe that was added after. Okay, I didn't notice that. Okay. My next question is about the fence. So it looks like the playground area is fenced in. So is there access from the parking lot? Is there like a gate to get back there? Yeah, from both sides? and a way to walk around the condenser. Yes,
We can add that to the site plan, the location of the gates and within the fence.
yeah. And then it would be sufficient should, I don't know what, the fire department need to get through that gate. Make sure that that's sufficient. I'd like to see the snow removal area on the plan, shown on the plan. And then I had a question about screening for the neighbors. Is there any plan just to be a good neighbor to screen?
So, here's the view from Walpole Road. With a home screen that's been set up to conceal the parking lot.
Okay. Okay. And so I see a sign that also, that sign should be
Yeah,
added
I
to the
don't know how
plan.
they were on the plans that were given to me, but
Oh.
somehow they didn't get on there, but we'll add those signs.
Okay.
And there's, onto the landscape plan.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that the landscape plan is 100% what the renderings are showing.
Okay. And all those tall trees on the north side there, though, are those existing or those will be added next to the
On the
docket?
landscape plan or here?
On the right side of that rendering?
You want me to go out and actually locate all of the trees on that side? I mean, we just kind of did a sort of a, this is wooded, this is open.
I mean, landscape should be shown, you know, as part of the site plan review. I'm just suggesting, you know, to be a good neighbor.
Yeah.
It might be,
So, here's the view from the front.
okay,
So right now, there's a bunch of tall trees, which we plan to get rid of, and we figure that will improve, the people coming out of Bubbling Brook onto North Street, turning left or right, that's going to improve their visibility looking down towards Fisher Street.
okay. Okay.
You're talking more about the ones that are on the north.
Yeah,
lot
the
line.
neighbors, you know, that you talked about your two abutters.
Yeah, I got it.
Sometimes it's helpful
Yeah,
to have.
we'll identify all of the trees along that ones, and then identify which ones are gonna stay and where we're gonna add new trees in between.
Okay, okay. Okay, my next question is about the impervious structures noted on that front sheet, I believe. Front sheet, yes. So lot coverage by all impervious structures. So allowable is 40%, and you're right at exactly 40%?
Yeah, we actually manipulated some things around to make sure it came out 40%.
Okay. And is that something usually you, like, show engineering department or anything, calculations on that?
We
I think it's
can-
in the drainage calcs.
It's in the
We
drainage?
can if you'd
Okay.
like.
All right, but.
But it includes rooftop, sidewalks, roadways, you know, dumpster area, anything that's impervious.
Okay. Now, the minimal usable space, we have 50% allowable, and you're proposing 64.5%.
It's whatever the definition of minimum usable space is.
Okay.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's not just 100 minus 40.
Okay, okay, so you're, okay.
You have to sort of go back to that, whatever the definition says.
Okay. The signage we talked about, is it just that one sign in the middle? That's what's
I think there-
proposed?
And I think there's enter and exit signs, right, at the driveways, which I'm
Okay.
not sure. I know at one point they were on the plans, and they should still be on there if they're not on there.
Okay. Okay. And then, there was originally a lighting plan submitted, but I don't think it showed, any lighting on the playground. Is that gonna be
Okay, I didn't.
added, and then make sure that that light doesn't spill over to
Okay.
the neighbors as well?
Okay, we'll go back to the.
And those are my comments, thank you.
Okay. Mark?
Thanks. Yeah, John, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time going over. You've been around long enough. I'm going to trust that all of your requirements are gonna be fulfilled. And with Sarah and Joe forthcoming, I'm sure that they will go over it with a fine-tooth comb. My questions are, obviously the building's going to be sprinklered. Is that true?
You're asking the wrong person.
It's not going to be? Okay. Because that would have been a concern with that 1-inch pipe coming in, it wouldn't have been adequate.
If the building was gonna be sprinkled, it wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be adequate, so, okay. Surprised that's not a requirement, but, okay. Just on the traffic, anybody that's had children that they've brought to daycare anywhere, you don't pull up like high school and tell your kid to get out of the car and go in and drive away. You get out of the car, you grab, I'm assuming there's gonna be infants all the way up to when they start elementary school, so you grab the baby, the bag, everything that you can bring with you. Carry everything in, sometimes in more than one trip if you're the only person. You talk a little bit because the baby has a sniffle. Doesn't like to eat the carrots, and you have to give the baby the Zantac because it has a little bit of reflux. And then you leave. Now, I'm assuming if you're at capacity with 100 students, there'll probably be some siblings. So just off the top of my head, I'd probably say it's reasonable to say there'd be 75 cars coming in the morning and 75 or so picking up in the evening. I don't know how many staff you have to have for 100 students, but I'm sure you have more specialized for infants, and then people that would deal with toddlers, and then all the way up, different people that would deal with the older students. That seems to be, for 100 students, you're going to have quite a few cars there in the morning that are staffed, that are parked on the sides. It looks like you're probably gonna have about 28 to 30, and again, I could be wrong, just off the top of my head, available spots at pickup and drop off in the morning. For 75 cars that are probably all trying to get there within the same 1 hour period. Would that be fair to say?
No, because I just did a traffic count at the Goddard School in Medfield. So they start about 6:30 and they end about 9:30, and I can show you it takes a while. Some people are early risers, obviously, they gotta get to work early, and some don't have to get to work.
Well, that's why I'm asking the questions, I'm not,
Yeah, I think
you know.
it's, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but I just happened, in fact, Jack and I worked on it together on doing some work at the Goddard School on Route 27 in Medfield, and what we found is it's actually fairly well spread out. It's not like a school, right? It's not like a public school where the school buses, everybody shows up because school starts at 8 o'clock or whatever. It's based on when the people need to go to work, how far their commute is. So, you really need to talk to Jack, but, it's not something where they all show up at once.
I will give you the benefit of the doubt on that for the morning. What time do you close? They close at 6.
Well, I can tell you, I'll show you the raw data
When
where.
it's time, there's not a lot of people getting picked up at 3, because people work. So regardless of the staggered time in the morning, they do have a hard stop at 6, and I know our daycare charged crazy money per minute. Anybody that has the experience knows. If you're past 6 o'clock, you might as well just bring your checkbook in with you. So I'm not saying that to be facetious or make light of it, but I understand that they need to leave. But you are going to have a more defined pickup time than the morning. And I agree with you that the morning will stagger a bit, but you do have, it is a bell curve in the morning from my experience. And again, I'm not in that business, but I was paying a business and my, it's like 6:30, 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then back down. So you do have that 3-hour window, but the bulk of it does come within a certain hour, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Can I just speak? So our families will have contracted drop-off or
Maureen.
Could you go to the mic so we can, people at home can hear you?
Sorry, you were talking. Sorry. Our families will have contracted drop-off and pickup times, so they'll have the option to choose a part-time or full-time space. And our teachers will be scheduled based on the needs of the families, with only so many spaces for pickup at 6, others for an 8:15 to 5:15 spot, others for 7:30 to 4:30. There are certain schedules that cater to meet the needs of public school teachers or private school teachers, so tuition is going to be slightly less for them because they're not interested in taking up the entire 10, 11-hour day. So that's a way that we can monitor how many families, not just for traffic purposes, which is also extremely important, but also just to have engaging conversations with parents about what's actually happened today and what matters and why, and how do we build upon this relationship to make sure tomorrow's an even better day. So it's important to me, and always has been, to make sure teachers have dedicated time to have those conversations. And if you have 15 parents coming into a preschool room of 20 kids at the same time, no one's having those conversations. It's usually chaos. Not to say that we're all having parent meetings every afternoon either. We appreciate dinner, bath, and bed have to happen, and softball and everything else. But making sure we have windows so that there's enough teacher coverage to ensure that conversations can happen and the children are still safe and cared for, and that there's enough parking spaces so that there's not an issue. I don't have parents at the door saying, how the heck am I supposed to pick up? There's no spaces here. I don't want that issue ever. So that is taken into consideration in our contracted times, if that helps.
Are you limiting the windows? Let me rephrase that. If everyone just, for whatever reason, comes in and wants to pick up at 6 o'clock, are you going?
There's only so many 6
business
o'clock
plan
spots.
to say, no, we don't do that? Our 6 o'clock pickup is already full. You can pick
Families
up
can
at 5.
get on a wait list for if they want a time that's already been
So you allot a
taken.
certain amount of pickup at a certain time window?
Well, depending on drop off and pick up, it's your
Right.
your time spot. Yeah, parents sign into that contract.
My
depending
question
on
is,
what they need.
Do you limit the amount of contracts per time block?
Eventually we'll have to if everybody wanted the same one. In my experience for doing this for however many years, I haven't run into an issue where everybody has wanted. Oftentimes, if you can be flexible with families and say, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I can offer you a 9 to 3 because that's what they want, not just what suits obviously the school's needs, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they want to do an 8 to 6. It's all a matter of really fancy scheduling.
It sounds great on paper and as we're sitting here talking, but my experience from the other side of it has been, I've walked some pretty good distances to go in and pick up my child because there were too many cars.
I've encountered that issue in the past as well.
On a street. The daycare that we went to was in a residential home. Significantly fewer students with the same staggered, I found the mornings to be very easy. I found
People
the
lingered.
afternoons to be almost impossible. And again, if you have a solution to that problem, I'd love to hear it. I think there will be traffic issues, and I'm not saying that, there's gonna be traffic issues, that has to be the end of it.
No.
I'm not so sure I love the whole project, but as the attorney stated, that's not my role right now. My role is to just look at the site and make sure it meets the standards and approve or not approve. However, is there a plan for that traffic backing out and waiting on North Street? Or worse, people parking on North Street because they're in a hurry, they have to get to softball, dance, dinner, and walking in from the street and getting their child. So you have three, is it going to look like Bubbling Brook on a Friday night out in front of this? That's my biggest worry.
Oh, yeah,
The
no,
ice
I know.
cream,
I know what it
where
is.
they park halfway
Yeah.
up the hill?
Yeah. So I'm not a traffic expert. I can't speak to that piece of it. But what I can say as a manager and somebody who's had to have really critical conversations with families about not picking up on time when we close at 6, the same conversations happen if you don't pick up at 5:15. If that's your contracted time and you're not able to get here, we can look at changing their schedule. We can look at finding out. I've had lots of teachers who opted in and out of different contracts with families to offer care after their contracted hours, whether they're taking children home or not. It's not necessarily my business, but as long as everybody's signed off appropriately. But there's a reason why just like I have to explain to the state who's caring for every single child at every single hour of the day. I have to be able to say if a family signed a contract saying they're leaving at 5:15 and they don't, I'm accountable for that to the Department of Early Education and Care. There becomes questions of, am I following up to ensure there isn't a neglect issue going on? So I have a whole other governing body that makes sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to ensure the safety.
I think part of that safety would be putting infants in and out of a car on North Street at rush hour.
It shouldn't happen. No, I agree. Shouldn't, on the main road, definitely not. That's why there should be a parking lot, yeah, where they're safe.
And I guess my question is, my only concern is the fact that, is it staggered enough where you're going to be able to utilize that parking lot?
It will have to be. Health and safety come first. For me, I don't know if there's another answer from the traffic study expert who's prepared probably other information, but.
Are you going to, would it be reasonable to require that parents wait and do not park and leave their car in North Street and wait for a spot to become available as they're pulling in? On the side of the road, but it's better than getting in and out and leaving parked cars there.
Well, you can go get a cup of coffee and come back if there's a spot available, but parking on, I would never expect or ask or even allow if I knew about families parking on the main road, because that means you're taking your child out on the main road. It's not just you and your car and the safety of other people. Now I'm worried about your infant, your 2-year-old who doesn't listen or hold your hand very well yet. There's a whole slew of other issues for me.
Well, we're in agreement about that. I'm just wondering what we're gonna do to mitigate that when it happens.
I think the
'cause I believe
contracted
it
drop-off
will.
pickup times are first and foremost, because then I can.
We do have a traffic engineer who's here, who studied all of this. I don't know if you want to get into it now. I heard that you were going to suspend and.
Yeah.
We'll put together a narrative to address it. We're not saying we're gonna solve it for you, but we'll address it and how we think it'll happen. And maybe talk to the traffic safety officer about signs there, about no parking during certain times, or no parking for specific people who are doing specific things, that they have to keep going until
Okay.
their space opens.
And again, I'm not trying to cause problems.
No,
we've all been there.
no,
We
no.
all know.
Everything you said is certainly reasonable, and as Maureen said, she doesn't want to be the person who's responsible for seeing those 10 cars sitting out there and people maybe with other siblings or something in their car also. So let's try to put together a narrative and see how we can sort of put the timing of it and maybe some restrictions or something, and, people have to come and go at certain times or whatever. And see
You mentioned that daycare up on 109. Is that the one that you were talking about?
No. It's on 27, it's a Goddard School on 27 at West Street in Medfield.
Okay. And how many students do they have?
I'm not sure. I don't think it's as large as this building. It could be. I'm not sure though, but I will say this, it does have the advantage of being on a corner where we have an entrance and an exit from each street, which does actually help in the circulation, because if you drive through, you just kind of give a loop around.
Well, I would suggest one last thing. If you want to get a real life understanding of what this might look like, drive up Washington Street in East Walpole when all the kids are going into the St. Mary's daycare.
I can see it from my office.
And then start to tell me that there's not going to be any problems with the size of this parking lot. Because the parking lot next to that probably has more spaces. And Washington Street is a mob scene in the morning and in the evening of parents and children running and getting out and stopping everywhere. So that's my only concern.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's appropriate, and the expectation is somewhat in reality. But other than that, that's all I can really comment on.
Yeah, let's see if we can put together a little bit more
All right,
information.
I wanna get this rolling.
Yep.
For point of clarification,
Yep.
West Street, there's a traffic light there. Does help, doesn't it? In Medfield?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
traffic-
okay, well, that's a very key thing. Would you say that helps the traffic flow? That's all. That's
I was
all I'm
just-
saying, I'm just commenting, that's all. We'll move on, Katie.
My comment, though, was to the number in the.
But I'm commenting, the traffic light is very key on any traffic control, but we'll move on. Kate?
Okay, on the developmental impact study, could you please explain to me how there's no long-term impact checked off for noise, property values, historical, archaeological, and neighborhood characteristics / aesthetics?
Well, as we said.
I see an impact on all of those, that's why I'm,
Well, as far as that goes, as we said, every public school in Walpole is in a residential neighborhood. So,
but this is a rural.
no.
Also, I would assume, having 3 children myself, that if it's a school, you're gonna have celebrations and special events at points in the year. Parking, I would think would be a huge issue at that point, because people bring, parents don't arrive together, but both parents come, grandparents come, aunts and uncles come, everybody comes. And I think that would be a huge issue, just from my own kids watching, like at the holidays and at the end of year when they have graduation. I think that's going to be a huge issue that needs to be looked at traffic-wise and parking-wise, because I don't see how that can be accommodated in that area. What kind of service trucks do you expect to be pulling in and out? And what I mean is like trash, food, linens, office supply trucks, water delivery. I live near a school and there's a lot of commercial trucks that are pulling in and out, and that's why I was wondering what you guys had planned for services.
If you don't mind, I'd like to go back to your first statement.
Absolutely.
About celebrations.
Yeah.
So one of our first order of businesses, aside from getting certified and licensed through the state of Massachusetts Department of Early Ed and Care, our next order of professional business, so to speak, will be gaining our NAEYC accreditation, which is a national standing and rating scale. And part of their philosophy, I won't go into all of it because it's late and I'm tired, but part of their strict focus is on the individual child. And why does that matter in this scenario? Because having just a random holiday party, while it's fun for adults and it's fun for kids, and it usually turns into a little more mayhem than actually something structured. For older children, it's more appropriate. For younger children, typically, NAEYC encourages you to have smaller gatherings that are focused on those specific children in that specific classroom. So what I found has worked the best, and I've been a director of various schools for over 15 years and worked longer than that, neither here nor there, but the more engaged families are, and the better attendance that I have is when the activity or the invite is smaller. So instead of doing a vast holiday party where we're expecting everybody to come, and I have run into that issue in the past, and that's a lot of fun for me. What ends up being the most engaging and the most beneficial for children is when you do one classroom at a time or 2 classrooms together that are buddy rooms, and having those grandparents, parents, foster parents, who's ever involved in the family unit, having them come and participate. So it breaks down the number. It's not as chaotic. It's truly difficult for families to supervise if they have multiple children in different classrooms. It's hard to attend if everybody's having a party at the same time. It's more challenging. So we usually schedule those things ahead of time, ask for family input, and figure out when works best for them. So that's one way of curtailing, hopefully, a mass attendance of 8 million vehicles. In regards to cars, big trucks coming through and dropping off supplies, we will have garbage and recycle. As far as linens are concerned, we will have a delivery of We are taking an organic approach to foods, so there will be deliveries of fresh fruits and vegetables and organic milk. We will also be getting school supplies, crayons, markers, and that sort of situation. But there won't be, families will be responsible for sheets and blankets and that, so there won't be linen trucks. Are there others that you had mentioned? I'm forgetting.
I said, I just gave examples
Yeah.
of what I see. I see trash. I
Mhm.
see big food delivery trucks. I see a bread truck. I see a linen truck. I see office supply trucks, water delivery. And it's very, so those delivery trucks, whether you want them to or not, they want to come early in the morning.
Mhm.
They want to get in and out before there is anyone around dropping off children, which I understand that from a safety standpoint,
Mhm.
but from a neighbor standpoint, it's disruptive.
Oh, I agree. I usually schedule them for between 10 and 12, because then most of drop-off is complete, and I'm available to greet said delivery person. If they're coming early, and I'm engaged in a conversation with a parent or prepping for the day, I can't give them my full attention, and I refuse to have somebody alone in my building. So deliveries aren't happening, not under my watch at least, since I've been a director. That happens later, after drop-off. There isn't an issue of Joey's getting out of the car, unless it's a one-off, someone had a doctor's appointment or something.
About how many kids are you, and I know you probably can't say yet, but about how many kids to a classroom? Do you
Depends on the
expect?
age group. Infants are licensed for 7 for each infant classroom. Toddlers will be licensed for 9. Preschool, pre-K, will be a max of 20. It's the state licensed ratio.
So my last question, and I mean no offense.
No, that's okay.
We have all been, we've heard from not just the neighbors, we've heard from townwide, we've heard from neighboring towns that this isn't the place for this, and I understand you have a legal right, I'm not questioning that. My question is, because I can't understand, is if you're not wanted, why would you want to go there? And again, I mean no disrespect, I just don't understand.
I don't take any disrespect, and I don't think Rosa Parks did either. No offense. No offense.
Let's hold it.
Am I supposed
Please,
to talk to people
please.
in the audience? I don't know. So here's what I'm saying, and I don't say that in any disrespect genuinely, but I think there's lots of people who haven't been wanted somewhere, and it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have been there. Because
Okay,
the-
please,
That's your
again,
answer.
we'll just end it here, because I'm not gonna get into a big battle. Enough, I'll let you talk a little more, because what you've been talking about most of it has nothing to do with the site plan. I was directed by the lawyer how to run this, and we heard about you and all your history. Doesn't make a difference to me,
Okay.
okay? It's irrelevant
Like me to
on
sit
this.
down. I will.
Okay, so, we're done with that, okay? Kate, do you have anything more?
No.
All right, Joe?
Thank you. Mrs. Mazzola or Mr. Allen, I got one question for both of you, or either one of you. I'm not gonna get into any of the site plan issues, because for me, I still am confused as to what your organization is. Is Little Things Academy a for-profit organization? And I believe at town meeting, at the spring annual town meeting, Mrs. Mazzola said yes. So are you a for-profit?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when the public notice went out, it indicated that you were looking for allowance to construct a 100-student elementary school, and then it said parentheses daycare. So that's the public notice that went out to the citizens of Walpole. To the board members, in a letter from Mr. Allen dated March 2nd, 2018, it said basically the same thing, that you wanted to build an early learning and educational facility, parentheses, daycare. So it looks like you're teetering back and forth as to what you really are. Are you an educational facility, or are you a daycare? So I need to know what you're operating as. What is the primary dominant purpose of your facility? And that's what has been decided in various court issues, in court cases, What is the primary dominant purpose of Little Things Academy? So could you tell us what it is?
So it's a childcare center.
It's a child care center.
Yes.
It's not educational.
It is educational.
All right, so when I went to the Secretary of State's office and pulled the certificate of organization and your corporate, and the corporate division business entity summary, it said, you are, Little Things Academy of Foxborough is an LLC, limited liability corporation. Then the form asks the general character of business and if the limited liability company is organized to render professional service. The service to be rendered is, and you only put this, child care service. There's no mention of educational component. So I asked our town council at town meeting that I need to get over this. She said, well, you're well within your rights to ask them what their organization is. So that you need to show us that you are, you gotta submit some documents here because we have no documents that show us that you really have the right to build this daycare facility and what state exemption allows you to do so. I need something in writing from you, okay? I can't just say, have somebody get to the podium, and I respect your attorney very much, but I can't just have somebody get to the podium and say, we're a educational facility, and we just say, okay, that's it. We need some documents here. We need some documents to substantiate exactly what you are and why you have the state exemption. I would assume that you're not operating as a religious or agricultural purpose, which is the other state exemptions that fall into here. But I would hope that you have articles of organization, some documents from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that indicate that you've got some type of certification to show that the primary or dominant purpose of your facility is actually education. Now, I was listening intently to what you were talking about, and this, it was like a, and I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, but when you were talking about a not teacher-led learning program and outdoors experience, you know, and I'm not being facetious here, but I was thinking that go out and play. You know, if we got 100 kids, go out and play in the backyard, and that's the end of it. I want to see a structure. I want to see curriculum. I want to see what is going on here as far as an education, because an educational facility, because if you can't supply that, the rest of this material is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. And the thing I would do was to submit your documents to our town council and have her go over them to verify that this is what you actually are. And then we can get into the rest of the stuff about bulk and height and yard size and lot area and open space. But the first hump to get over is show us who you are and that you have a right to these state exemptions. Otherwise, the ball game is over as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to address that tonight, or?
No, you can come.
Seems like we're gonna have another session. I'm happy to do it tonight, right now, or?
No, because I got something here that you're gonna have to come back with anyway.
Right.
Okay? You all set, Joe?
Thank you.
All right. Google's a wonderful thing. You don't have to be a lawyer anymore, but I've been told I should be reading law stuff because I'm a lay person, and that still sticks with me. I went to section 40A, section 3, and I've also been through this before, where the Dover Act. I don't know if everybody in the room knows what the Dover Act. The Dover Act was simply back in the 60s where Dover didn't allow Catholic churches in there. And so the legislature changed that. But it has to be reasonable. And that's the whole key here. What it says very simple is, it's no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit or require a special permit for the use of land structures, expansion of existing structures for primary, accessory, or incidental purposes of operating a child care facility, provided, however, that such land structures may be subject to reasonable regulations concerning bulk, height, yard size, lot area, parking, and lot coverage. Okay, so what that means to me, very simple, is you gotta blend in with the neighborhood, and what I see here is not necessarily blended in the neighborhood. And I know I'm going on a roll just to keep things, I know people wanna talk, but if you look at the, I forget the name of the church just up the street in Medfield by the pond, that fits very nicely, that Catholic church. What I did do is I looked at the application, and then I went for the definitions under 15D 1A, and I also sent something to the town's attorney. And what this was filed under is 100 student elementary, in parentheses, daycare. All right? Oh, I'm sorry, 100 student elementary school daycare. Well, what does that mean to me? I think it means to most of us is we'll send our kids to Fisher School or Boyden or something like that. But I will say that there's nothing in the definitions of section 15D 1A of either one, daycare or elementary. So that needs to be defined. And also from our town council, asked her about the application, just to double check. And what she had said back in May is she reviewed the application for the site plan, and they do not include an assertion for protection for the proposed project under section 40A, section 3. So that's what our town council said based upon the application. So that's why you can respond to that next time, okay?
What'd you say, some other time?
Well, the next time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I know you're gonna have to respond to it. So that's kind of where we are with that from a legal standpoint, and we also have powers of what goes in here and what doesn't, so, but I don't wanna, there's some more stuff, site plan stuff that I have, but that's for another night, especially getting late. I know there are a lot of people that wanna say something, but before I do that, I just wanna acknowledge the people who sent stuff in, and I'll paraphrase them. Most of them all said they're against it because it's an old, nice-looking neighborhood, and they don't want to do it. I have one from Paul Anastasia of North Street. I have one from Charlie Hall and Linda Connors of Sunny Rock. I have one for Yvette Morrow from North Street. I have one from a gentleman in Westwood, so I just want to know that. And Sue Shabbat sent us a nice card from Nantucket. So, she invites us all down. So I just want to get those. Now, I'll recognize anybody. You need to come up to the podium and state your name and address and what your question is and who you'd like to answer it. So whoever would like to go first. Oh. No.
My name is Bob Runcie. I live at 450 Fisher Street. I lived there for 40 years. And I can tell you that I don't think anyone here has taken an accurate traffic situation analysis on the extension from Fisher Street all the way to 109. I have never seen so much traffic in the past 3 years. And I'm talking heavy trucks, 40 tons, 36 tons. I was master mechanic for Jay Dorenza, so I know what's going down the road. Anyway, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen when people try to get off of 109 and to get to this school. They're not going to be able to cross into that parking lot to start with. The traffic backs up from 109 all the way to Sue's house in the morning, and that's from 7 o'clock to about 8:30, okay? That's in the summertime, in the good weather. In the winter, it's a whole nother story. What's going to happen, you got to remember one thing. There's both ends of that street are not controlled by traffic lights. So it's the strongest person is going to get on, is going to make the turn. People are going to learn that. When they bring their kids to school and they can't get in that driveway, they're going to park on the road. If they're coming from 109, they're going to stay on the road because they're going to want to take a quick U-turn to go back to 109. They're not going to want to go the next 2.5 miles to Route 1A to go someplace, because now you're going to be back in the traffic from Walpole and other surrounding towns. Now, nobody has mentioned that there's a building project going on right now between Fisher Street and Old North Street. Do you know what I mean? You know where, when you come down North Street, and then it turns into Fisher Street, correct? If you take a right, that's still north when you take a right. There's a big project, huge project. There's something like over 100 houses going in there. They haven't finished yet, but they're about to come online. The only way these people are going to be able to get to 128 or to wherever they're going to go, they have to go Fisher and North, which is going to make it that much more difficult. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a real mess. I've been after the town to control both ends of that street with lights. They can't do it down by Bubbling Brook because that's Westwood. But down the other end, that's Walpole. So what did they do? They put a sign up. Please be courteous to traffic trying to get in. You know, good. I think all of you know what that's like, right? So, I mean, it's not good. It's not a good situation. People are going to park on the sides of the road. In the winter, that road narrows badly. You all know that, right? They plow the snow, all right. Where are these people going to park their cars? No sidewalks. They're going to grab their kids. They're going to run across the street, go down to the school. I mean, it's going to be a mess. That's all I have to say. And you guys can go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Dylan Sanders from the law firm of Sugarman Rogers. I represent a group of residents who are organized as the Walpole Preservation Alliance. They're very concerned about the destruction of, the proposed destruction of the existing building, as well as the proposed use. I want to start with the last point that a member of the board made, that there's an initial hurdle that needs to be crossed here. I submit that that initial hurdle is someone coming forward with proof that this is a licensed facility, will be a licensed facility. A large group daycare center, as this is proposed, is subject to very onerous licensing requirements. There's been no submission that they can get through that process. So I submit that that's the one document, that's the one initial hurdle. But there's a bigger point here. We don't accept that the Dover Amendment applies here. We submit that child care facilities are subject to the Dover Amendment. However, the proposed destruction and new construction of a child care facility is not subject to the Dover Amendment exemption. And this issue has been litigated before in two recent land court cases, Primrose versus Town of Natick and Campbell versus Town of Weymouth. And those two cases hold. They're land court cases. They're not appellate cases, but they're well-reasoned land court cases. Those two cases hold that new construction of a child care facility, unlike renovation of an existing facility or expansion of an existing structure, those two things are subject to the Dover Amendment exemption. However, new construction of a child care facility is not subject to the Dover Amendment protections. And so I submit that this board and the town as a whole has full discretion to do what its bylaws permit. And I'll take that up with town council, and I'll submit that authority to the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders, are you submitting a brief to us?
I will.
For our folders and files and whatnot?
I will.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Shockett, 1340 North Street. I'm also the president of the Walpole Preservation Alliance. And I made a promise to many of the members of the planning board that not everybody from the organization would stand up and speak. However, I did want to show you, we're over 200 members, and in this room, if I could just do a show of hands, who's here because of your opposition to this project? I think the point is clear. I think we saw it at town meeting. This is not something that the neighbors want. This is not something that the town wants. And this is not something that the surrounding towns want. There were a few other members who definitely wanted to get up and say something, but just wanted to make that point. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Evening, Charles Hayes, 1354 North Street. I live on the other side of 1350 from Sioux. I want to speak to the complete unsuitability of this property for this kind of use, regardless of the fact of tearing down one of the oldest houses in Walpole, et cetera, et cetera. But I actually brought some props for you to show them in a second. The area itself has been farmland for basically 270 years. The ground as such is basically a sponge, living on top of a hill, up of a plateau. All our cellars flood, or basements, whatever term you prefer to use. If it's not for French drain and sump pump, okay, much any kind of rain, you're gonna flood, your cellar's gonna flood. And I'm more than happy to show you all the watermarks in my cellar from when it happens, and usually because the power's out. That area, no town sewer, as we've talked about. The high traffic, distance to town emergency services, police, fire, etc. Because of all the traffic, there's numerous accidents at Bubbling-Brook Road and North Street that police can obviously speak to quite well. As a gentleman spoke earlier about the traffic backing up from in the morning from 109 up, that's better than a quarter of a mile. Okay, I mean that's not because the road's being repaired or whatever. That's just because so many people going to work on 109 and coming up Fisher Street and North Street. As far as the ground, and one of the things I have here, pictures for you, I'd like to submit. I approach for your folders and stuff. The ground, that area, that lot, I took a number of pictures. Okay, as I said, I've lived there well over half a century. I've been doing it, used to play in the ponds there as a kid. Believe it or not, I was one once. And the ground just in the spring, you know, there's just all these ponds form. Whether or not they're vernal in nature, that's not my expert. That's for people who may or may not have to do. But across that whole area of that plot of land, okay, you can see all the water that builds up, and that speaks to septic issues directly below that house. The houses on Bolingbrook Road, their septics, which were built in the mid to late 80s, their septic systems failed and had to be completely rebuilt, redesigned, and enlarged. And those are septic systems for a single family house, okay? The lot size is roughly the same as this lot here, but it's not gonna have a building that size and parking lot planted on it. So there's no way that the ground is gonna withstand, okay, the septic system for 100+ kids and adults and other services, laundry, cooking, etc. So the houses directly below Bubbling-Brook Road, their sellers can basically expect in a couple of years, if this is built, to become storage tanks for septic system for this project, which I don't think that the owners would enjoy, and their lawyers either. One of the biggest and most important things, I think, is, you know, all the town boards, I spoke to this before at selectmen's meetings. Okay, I say it publicly again here, I'll say it publicly to any of them, all right? All the town boards, okay, should be able to provide whatever incentives possible, whether legal, what have you, monetary, all right, to help them relocate their business to a part of the town that's, okay, much more suitable, has sewage, for example, better traffic access, because it's just not going to work. It's not going to be a good thing at all. So all the town boards could do what they could to help them locate it to a different part of the town, maybe even in a separate town. Okay, but that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Hi there, I'm Tricia Barajas. I live at 1400 North Street in Walpole. I'm just 3 houses north of where the facility would be. I just have a question. There was a traffic study on April 19th, is that correct? Is that when it was? And can you just tell me briefly what the traffic study, what they do for a traffic study, just briefly, while you're looking that up?
Well, what they do or what they did, it could be two different things, so
Okay.
I'll let them answer it.
Okay.
So I have our traffic engineer come forward.
We'll just tell them what he did, just to be brief. They wanna know what, yeah. And then we can do the traffic next time.
Okay.
So if you can confirm the date too, go
To
ahead.
the microphone, please.
My name's Jack. I've been sitting quiet, I'm not used to that. My name's Jack Gillen, I'm a traffic engineer with Gillen Associates out of Weymouth. I've been in traffic since 1971. What we did here is I looked at historical traffic counts. MassDOT had counts on file for the section of North Street just south of 109. So I looked at those traffic counts and what their peak hour traffic counts were, both going eastbound and westbound. I had done the traffic study in Walpole here for Roscommon, the project further south, and I had counts for that project. I had actually counted the intersection of Main Street and Fisher Street, and I had a machine across Fisher Street, that area. On this particular project, I knew that I did not have any data on the North Street section between Fisher Street and Main Street. So I put a machine on that section of North Street and also counted the morning and evening peak hour on North Street at Main Street, which I did not have. So then I went back and did the analysis for the baseline condition. MassDOT had other counts in the area, and they were roughly equivalent to 1% per year. And I went 7 years out, because that's what MassDOT wants you to do now. So I went to 7 years out with a no-bill condition, came back and did the bill condition, which was based on the trip generation of the ITE manual. Now, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they collect data throughout the country. And they have a book, the ITE Trip Generation Report, the 10th edition, which just came out last September. They have it based on various land uses as well as variables within those uses. So I looked at the daycare nationwide based on 100 students, and that gave me trips in and out in the morning. And then I looked on it based on the square footage of the building. And that gave me trips in and out in the morning as well as the afternoon. So the total trips based on the different variables was 78 based on students, 71 based on square footage. This is all in the report. So I just averaged that between the trips based on the square footage and the trips based on the number of students. And then in the afternoon peak hour, based on students, it was 79. Based on square footage, it was 72. So I averaged that and got 76 as a projection that ITE would have accepted as the trip generation for this. And they also did the directional split. They also looked at how many people were going in the morning versus how many people were going out. So they gave us the directional split on all of these other facilities and averaged those out. So I took those trips based on this size and this square footage, and I added that to the roadway network based on where everybody is going to in the morning and where were they coming from in the afternoon. Basically, once you drop your child off, a lot of people are going to work after that. And a lot of people are coming from either work or school or something else in the afternoon. So we did it based on the directional distribution based on what the existing patterns were. And then we analyzed the intersections of North Street at Main Street and Fisher at Main Street, and we compared to the no-build and the existing conditions and saw that this low number of trips when compared to the traffic that you have out there on Fisher Street and Main Street doesn't change the level of service or delay to any measurable extent. So that's, and then we looked at the crashes down at Fisher and Main Street. I didn't look at the crashes on on Bubbling Brook at North Street, but I will do that before we come back with the next stuff. We looked at the speed limit, we looked at what you would require for stopping sight distance in both directions. Then I looked at the site plan and knew that if we took enough brush down in front of the building, we'd have that sight distance as well. So that's basically what I did, and I don't know where you want to go with that.
I just have one little question to ask you. I saw that in the traffic study, your traffic study for 2018 was in May.
Yeah, that's
May
about right.
22, 23,
That's when we
20.
did the counts on North Street, between Fisher and Main, and also the new counts on North at Main Street, that's correct.
Okay, there was a decline in the number of cars during that time period based on what you looked at in 2015? Did you?
It might have been that might have been that time.
Okay, it looked like there was a decline. Now, I'm wondering whether or not that decline had anything to do with the construction at Bubbling Brook Ice Cream intersection by the town of Norwood, because they were working there all during that time period. So do you think that affected the count, or could have affected the count? Because, just let me finish.
Sure.
I drove by that intersection on my way into Boston, and it was so horrendous, and I saw people turning around, going a different way. I myself turned around and went down Brook Street in order to get into Dedham, okay? And I went all back roads. I ended up coming out by 109, was it the Thurston School?
I know where you are. I know how the back roads work.
The big pond there, Buckmaster Pond.
Right.
And there was nobody. So I think people were seeking alternative routes during that time period, and I think maybe the time period that you studied had something to do, so coincided with the construction site and the backup. The backup was terrible there, that people sought alternate routes. Plus, there was Memorial Day weekend coming up.
We don't count on Memorial Day.
You don't think the holiday had any effect on it?
No, we don't do that.
Okay, but I do think the construction.
But what I will do is I'll go back and I'll check, excuse me, the MassDOT accounts that they have online. And I'll check those against the construction periods up at 109 and North Street. I
Okay.
will, for my own edification, I'd like to know that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will be doing traffic next time.
Okay, I just want to clarify. I thought I heard April 19th was the traffic study, which would have been during school vacation week. I
No,
thought I heard that, but,
I got right in front of me a letter to John Glosser from Gillian Associates dated April 19th.
oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so if it was during April vacation week, obviously it would be completely skewed. It wouldn't be even accurate. I have a question. Will a peer review of the traffic study be required before the planning board goes forward?
That was one of the things I was gonna bring up also.
I mentioned it, I would like it.
Okay. Yep, we can request one.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yep. Peer review.
Hi, my name is Ann Zalastowski. I live at 49 Woodruff Road in Walpole. And I've gone up North Street a lot of times, and I was really appalled to think that this beautiful home would be thrown down. But even more so, to think that they could take it down and put a business in there. I try to read the zoning laws and all of that stuff, and it's like Greek. I'm just a plain old citizen. I'm not a lawyer or anything. And from what I could see, it's zoned rural. I mean, it doesn't say business rural. It doesn't say rural for whatever. And they try to say, well, it's the Dover, whatever the Dover Act is. I have no idea. But when I looked up at what is required of putting a daycare center, if I wanted one in my house, there'd be certain requirements if it was a small one, which I assume would be like 5 or 6 children, and a large one. Now, a large one to me does not mean 100 children. Even if it was 75, I could keep maybe 10 or 15, depending on my circumstances. Do I have a big house, a big yard, whatever the requirements are? But I really think just because they call it a school doesn't mean it's a school. Not a school, it's a daycare. And just because it's a frog, you can't call it a prince. So, be realistic. It's not really, when I think of a school, I think of Fisher School, even young children who go, but you have babies in there. How is that a school? What, are you going to teach the kid how to walk or whatever? No. It's a daycare, but they want to color it with glitter or something. They say, oh, it's a school. We're going to teach these kids wonderful. I have 5 children. Go on outside. Lock the door. Don't come in unless you're bleeding, for heaven's sakes, you know? But they were playing outside. And I did send some of mine to St. Mary's. Had, I wouldn't even call, I don't know, a kid that got 2 or 3 hours in the morning, a nap, a cookie, building blocks. That was enough. But, you know, to say, oh, it's a school, we have to build it here with all the land in Walpole. Please don't tell me this is the only piece of land. But I thank you for your attention.
I'll just answer, just for your clarification, ma'am, they do have it in the mass law. They call it large family and small family daycare. Large families up to 10, I think a small, we say up to 6. So that's what they have inside a house. So a large family is a max in a house of 10.
Hi, everyone. I know Ann from the Norwood Food Pantry, so it's great seeing you here. My name is Roy Nopel. I'm the president of the Friends of Adams Farm in Walpole on North Street. In the past, I've lived on North Street, 501 and 1014 North Street. You might say I really know North Street. I speak this evening, though, as a resident of Norwood, and I enjoy spending time This is intensely serious, everyone. Thank you. I enjoy spending time in Walpole on North Street because of the unique country feel. So much so that I ran and was elected to be the president of the Friends of Adams Farm, located on North Street. Norwood used to be more rural. It has forever, though, lost its rural character because, regrettably, the town of Norwood has allowed it to, with all due respect. I care so much about the unique rural importance of North Street, and importantly, the historic importance of the home on North Street, that I like to represent the residents of Norwood in my own special way who travel regularly on North Street. In front of me, I see the historical town logo. In stark contrast to the photos of pavement on these photos in front of me, in stark contrast to car congestion in place of summer breezes, bright lights in these photos, in stark contrast to the historical town logo. And that logo, I would hazard, reflects the beautiful home that's presently on the site of the projected, somehow projected proposal that I hope and pray will be placed elsewhere in Walpole. Also, I felt there was a slight to the committee that I wish to correct. And in closing, within 1 minute, I see a committee in front of me of parents, of adults that have grown up and are so respectful of what's important to the town of Walpole, what's important to the rule of law. And I regret that I heard a perceived slight to your committee, and I wish to apologize on behalf of the gentleman that could have, in my perceived way, slighted your committee. I am truly honored to be speaking with you, and thank you for hearing myself.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Rudy Barajas. I live at 1400 North Street. I looked at the plans that were submitted to the planning department and were circulated throughout the various departments in Town Hall here. There were a couple of things that I noticed on the plans. One being that you have a septic system and you have a drainage system. And my property is very similar to this property, and it's in the corner of North Street and Skyview, and it slopes, downhill away from North Street. And when we bought the house in the late 90s, we were told by the previous owner that the septic system in our yard was one of the most expensive systems ever installed on a residential property in the state. One of the reasons is that my septic field had to be contained by a concrete retaining wall. It's a substantial wall, 125 feet long, 12 inches thick, and probably 10 to 12 feet in overall height when you go down all the way down to the footing. And I didn't see anything on this particular plan that had a similar type of cutoff or isolation between septic and drainage on the property. I also noted the drainage and the way the drainage is configured on the property. And just to be clear, I do heavy civil construction. I have that kind of background. I also do buildings and that sort of thing, so I'm familiar with reading plans. And on this particular plan, the parking lot is at the front of the property, and there are 2 drainage swales that go on either side of the building, 2 catch basins, and then they carry on into a tank which goes into, it basically goes down Bubbling Brook Road eventually. With a commercial type property, what's different than, we all have garbage pickup, and we all have recycling, but we don't have all those other deliveries, and those trucks are not driving on our property. But here, trucks with hydraulics will be driving onto the property and into that parking lot, so that there is a potential for oil getting onto the pavement. The way the system is currently designed, I'm not sure that there is a proper oil-water separation in the system, but I do know for sure that between the hard paved surface of the parking lot and the inlet of the catch basin, there are 2 swales. So any type of oil-water separation that may be in those structures, the oil will go into the ground before it ever gets to a structure. So I just submit that it doesn't appear that the plans have thought that through. So there's a potential for contamination of soils in this type of use. And then one last thing, North Street, again, scenic road. I have the historic stone, or not historic, but I have scenic stone walls and trees and all of that stuff. And the one thing that I see missing on these plans is there's no stone walls. So I know that there's a limited amount you can do to alter a stone wall on scenic North Street because of the scenic road statute, and it appears that's all being obliterated on these plans. Just observations.
Just for you, so you understand, they would have to go for a scenic road hearing, which they file to the selectmen and ends up back here, so it's a whole separate deal. From a scenic road, you can't stop people from enter and exit, but you can stop them from knocking down the stone walls. So what will happen is if they want to get a driveway in, they probably have one now, and if it's not in the same place, you're just gonna move the stone. So the net result is you should have the same amount of stones left that was there now in the end. And the same thing, and the trees are on the town property, so they shouldn't be cutting those, but if there's a tree in the way, typically, we'll have them put another tree back for that, but that's a whole separate hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Olivia Cullen. I'm at 27 Bubbling Brook Road. I just want to make a comment about a statement that, I forget his name, but I think he's the engineer from the proposed daycare. When discussing the staggered scheduling of children being dropped off, he said, and I quote, "It's not like a school." I just want to point that out, that he made the comment that it's not like a school.
Hi
Thanks, y'all, for hanging in there so late tonight. I'm Kate Falwell. I live a couple of houses down from Olivia on
We
Bubbling
got
Brook
another one
Road.
after this. You want to stay?
Yeah.
You wanna stay
Oh my
late?
gosh. Thanks for hearing us. Anyway, I am a resident of Bubbling Brook Road, and as it happens, I used to work in community development, and I used to work for the census, and I want to make mention of that because my job used to be to help small businesses find financing to start their businesses. And in doing your market analysis, I know you didn't necessarily have to go through a traditional going to a bank and doing all of that, proving that your business will succeed. From what I understand, and I don't know this, that you're getting your financing from your dad, perhaps, or something. That's what I heard anyway. I just wanted to verify that. And in looking at the feasibility of your business, you have to look at your trade area, and that's based on population numbers. Population in the area and census numbers since 2014 is going down. Our daycares in the area are not at capacity. Our schools are losing numbers. As others have mentioned, the traffic area, your trade area, cannot include Medfield and Westwood because no one's going to turn down North Street and try to loop around again to get to a daycare. They're going to go make other choices. So other people in Walpole, I just don't know that if they have other choices available to them and there's space available at those, including the Goddard that is on 109, 2 minutes away, I don't think they're going to choose another service. So I guess I am obviously very biased. When I have to get out of Bubbling Brook in the morning, I have to wait for somebody to make a space, ask them to kind of look, because I can't see around the cars, to make that left turn to get into town every morning. So anyway, so I have concerns both on traffic, but also on the actual feasibility of the business. So I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Okay, peer review, we need one on traffic. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay, make a motion to request a peer review of the traffic. All those in favor? Oh, I mean, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. As
Mr. Chairman, how much are you going to request the applicant give the board in funding? Or do you want the peer review quotes, and then which way do you want to do it?
You're jumping on me, Maggie.
I know, I thought you were going on to the next topic.
No,
that's
what
all.
I'm gonna say is that, he's just gonna look at this traffic report. I know it's not gonna be as extensive as the ones we've had in the past, like Pulte's, so, if you just get some quotes, and we'll pass them along to the applicant. It's in our section that we can require the applicant to pay, and we'll solicit various track engineers that we've used in the past.
Can we
Couple.
request, like, current counts? It seems like he used a lot of, like, historical data instead of.
The problem we're gonna run into
Real
is
count.
schools out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any traffic study that's done right now is not gonna be accurate because traffic is cut in half.
Well, we'll get we need a peer review anyway, so,
Mr. Chairman, just on that, it sounds like there's gonna be some updating of the traffic report anyway.
Okay.
We don't wanna go through it twice. So
Okay.
Let's get our report updated, and
Sure.
then if you're gonna do peer review.
all right, so we got some time, we'll get you the quotes and everything else. Okay, everybody understand that?
Yep.
Here
What
and down
What
there?
I'll need is when you're to the point where Mr. Gillen has submitted the update, we'll need the plans and the traffic report electronically so that I can ask a couple of folks.
Okay, if you get that info, okay.
And Mr. Brooks, if he can, on your update, if you can also have Mr. Gillen find out about the town of Westwood's construction period.
Yes, he said he'd do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, do we need an extension, Kate? Okay. We're booked up on actually the 19th of July. You're still gonna have to do your traffic, which we all know is a big thing here. We have a meeting in August, only one. The issue is, just so you know, Mr. Maraski has something else that night. Was that the night?
Mm.
So it will only be down to 4, unless you wanna wait till the first meeting in September. You wanna roll with 4?
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay, so,
Sorry, what date are you proposing?
no, August 16th.
August 16th?
No, we'll be down to just 4 members.
Put the traffic next time.
Yep.
July 19th.
August 16th.
Yeah, so if you get your stuff together before then, and we can get our peer review and do that, it may happen all that night. Okay, August 16th, what do we got for time?
7:01, 7:15.
We're not taking someone else's. What's 7:15? I only gave it away. Walsh? Yeah. All right, we'll do it 7:16 then. All right, we'll continue this meeting on Thursday, August 16th at 7, what did I say? 16. We have one before us. We just do that so we don't have a gap. So just like tonight, it shouldn't be that long. So I'll see everybody on that date. And, oh, the extension. Can I have an extension up through the end of August?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to allow the applicant an extension up through the end of August 31st, 2018. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brooke, could you either, if you get something to write it down, or just send us one?
The request for the
Yeah,
extension?
just so we have it in writing, so everybody's cool on that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I gotta not cross over these.
See what it is?
Do you have a card?
Ventilation went over.
Do you have a card?
What he said. The use of land or structures, they're not built, that doesn't mean new, does it? Or the expansion of existing. That means the structure's already there. It's pretty good. I like that.
I gave him my last one.
Okay, thank you.
Joey's not a criminal attorney.
Break time.
Yep, 2 minutes. And after, 7:45 and 7:46. I know.
What, you want me to turn it off?
It's like a strobe light.
Want me to turn it off? I will. What's the matter? Let me down.
I can't move. Kate, get up there and pull a cord. Oh, it's just, it is a strobe, okay? The hour being after 7:45 and 7:46, we have a public hearing for site plan application 18-8 and special permit case number 18-9 for property located Renmar Ave and West Street, Walpole, shown assessors map 32, parcel 86 and 85, map 40, parcel 6, zoning district LM, assessors map 39, parcel 55, zoning district LMRB, assessors map 39, parcels 57 and 59 and 60, zoning district RB, assessors map 32, parcel 9, zoning district RB, and all assessors parcels are within the Walpole Resource Area 3 recharge. Plans prepared by CHE of Norwell, Mass, and the site plan entitled Proposed Age Qualified Village for Bristol Brothers Development Corp. At Renmar and West Street. With that being said, we do have the hearing open, and my understanding is you want to talk a little, but you don't want to, well, just so you understand, once you talk, anybody can ask questions, so we can't just shut them off either, so, okay.
Great, thank you very much. I'm Jeff Taccio, and I'm counsel for Bristol Brothers Development. Tom Godfrey, one of our consultants, is here, and then Jim Bristol from Bristol Brothers. What we're doing this evening is we've filed with you folks a request for the September continuance of the September 6th meeting.
Okay.
To be able to preserve, the full number of people that are going to be sitting on the board through or past the summertime. What we've done there is we've also agreed to extend the date upon which you have to issue an order, and then we'll work with you folks on some of that. As we go forward, the other piece of the equation is we've gone through Maggie's comments, and 2 items of housekeeping that I just want to make sure that I don't forget before we start is that she suggested that there be peer review for the stormwater, and would ask that you folks vote to authorize that, and then also the traffic peer review as well. The water and the sewer, we've already begun discussions with water and sewer departments. Rick Matson's been really helpful on that, so we'll be working on that through the summer as we advance some of these other issues. Additionally, we'll be filing the notice of intent with the Conservation Commission within the next couple of weeks, so that's something else that will begin to go along in the the little bit of a stretch while we're away from you folks. Well, what we're looking at is 55 plus or minus acre parcel, 105 detached condominium units, age restricted, on the land with the former where the quarry is, Renmar, West Street, as you folks mentioned. What we wanted to do this evening, while we've got the comments, excellent comments, we've already begun to start to address some of those, is see if I could have Mr. Bristol introduce himself to you. We haven't been able to do that yet, so I wanted to, as you folks go forward, understand what their interest is in the land, and as an overall of some of the work that they've done and what they'd like to bring to that 55-acre parcel. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if I could have...
Yeah, you want a peer review for the traffic, and what was the other one?
For the stormwater as well.
We don't do that, right?
Yeah, we can.
Well, I thought we had someone else do stormwater. I thought that was Landis, no?
Not always. It can be done through this board. It's however you want to do it.
And we did have a Pulte.
Yeah. I mean, she did it, it's, as long as, the only thing we want to make sure is that if Concom wants it done and this board wants it done, then we do it once, and that they be, that's all.
Okay.
And the last time around, they hit it first. The Concom was hitting Pulte first, so they did it, there.
All right.
And if we want to wait to, as long as it's authorized, and we can go before conservation, and at that point, if they've, I'm sure they'll talk to Maggie and we can figure it out. But
There's
that's
typically, I mean, we can get you quotes, but there's typically, there's a fellow that's done a lot of them around town. The only thing, if you don't provide to her and goes through here, I'll need your calculations and the plans electronically so I can send them to whoever we end up getting for you.
Not a problem whatsoever. Okay. Just because we're not going to be in your regular rotation, speaking with Kate, we're going to be moving the
Yeah.
ball quite significantly.
Okay.
So either contact her or just get in touch with me during the day so that we can figure this all out.
Thank you.
All right, I'll get that done right now. I'll make a motion for peer review for both traffic and stormwater.
Second.
Second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's off the table.
Right, and this Mr. Bristol. And Kate, I'll give you an extra.
Evening, folks. My name's Jim Bristol, Bristol Brothers Development. I'm fourth generation in a family that does sand, gravel, quarrying operations. We operate the quarries in Weymouth and Hingham, where we historically have quarried a granite that is the Boston College campus, Yale University, Michigan State, a lot of churches with the Archdiocese, is the Weymouth granite. My grandfather bought the Walpole quarry off of Forest Road in Renmar in the 1950s, and it was an existing operating quarry. It's a stone that you folks have seen all around Walpole. It's the grayish lavender stone that is on the Valley Steakhouse, and you've seen it in retaining walls and whatnot around town and all over New England. We've quarried there continuously since the 50s. We also managed the Bird and Son landfill for years for that company, where we're immediately adjacent to that property. The land has been zoned industrial since we've owned it. We also are in the development business, and we do a lot of residential construction. So we were pretty excited when the AQV zoning became available on that property. We added 30 acres to it about 9 or 10 years ago. And then in anticipation of abutters' concerns, mainly Forest Road, there's 5 homes on Forest and West Street right there that we've historically accessed the site through. The Sistinelli brothers rent from us a garage at the end of Forest Road now. And in anticipation of it being a concern developing out back, using that as the only access, we bought a home at 534 West Street. And the design you'll see in more detail in September. We brought the entrance through there so that the egress through Forest Road would only be proposed as an emergency access. I met recently with the neighbors, invited them all, and we'll be addressing their concerns, primarily looking to gate that emergency access and provide some kind of good turnaround for emergency vehicles, school buses, and for plowing snow. So historically, they've came up and turned around on our property, but we think there's the room there to introduce a cul-de-sac that would help alleviate those issues. So I'm trying to be brief. You guys have had a long night, and we appreciate that, but we would like to invite you out. We built a similar community that we've modeled this after in Weymouth. It's 149 homes there. We're the biggest taxpayer in the town of Weymouth. Our community pays over $1 million in taxes, and very little service. Will be private roads. We'll have private trash pickup. No children in the schools. So we look forward to working with the department heads and getting through some issues that have been raised, working with peer review. And we'd like to invite anybody, we'll leave contact information with Kate and Tim, and anybody that would like to come out to Weymouth and tour our community. That's what we're modeling this after, and we're not, everything we permit, we build. We build our own roads, we build our own houses, we do right through the landscape, we control the landscape, so it's not type development where we might come in, permit it, and sell it to somebody. We'll see this thing all the way through. We look forward to working with you and hopefully building a community that both us and the town of Walpole can be real proud of. Thank you for your time. I know everybody like to get home to bed, so.
I have
Any questions? I met with these folks and anything they got. Yeah?
I toured your site by Google.
Okay, yeah.
You have a golf course there.
Yes, yeah.
So you're not gonna put a golf course here?
We'll have a golf feature, but not a course, no.
Okay. I would like to tour the site here, the quarry.
Yep.
I'd like to see the contour of that land as it is now.
Sure.
So I would rather do that sooner than later, and I have some questions about the quarry development and the restoration of the quarry in anticipation of the proposed development. So maybe we can do that at a site visit or something like that. And I also have a bunch of other questions that would take a long time, unless you want me just to sort of brief.
They haven't given us anything yet.
Okay, well, I hope they give us
We
something.
we want to do a presentation that, you know, that first impression's important, and we knew you had a long night tonight, so we.
You owe us $1,500, though.
All right.
Yeah, get your checkbook out.
Okay.
When you calculated your filing fee.
Okay.
You didn't do the 0 to 2,000 square feet, 2001, which is $500, and 2001 to 5,000 square feet, which is $1,000. Is it incremental? You went right to $2,000, which is 5,000 square feet to 10,000.
Okay.
So you were 50. You should have been 11, the way I calculated anyhow, and maybe I'm wrong, Kate can help you with it later. I calculated it at 11,350, not 9,850. Although I was hoping that it was going to be a subdivision, because then I would have said you owe us $192,000.
Wow.
1,500 sounds good.
Soften you up, okay. You all set, Joe? Yes.
Okay.
Kara, Kara, I'm sorry, Sarah?
Okay, Mike, so I just have just a few questions. I'm not gonna go through my whole thing, but my first question is for the board. So, since the town meeting, this has been driving me up the wall, is my understanding that there were no changes to the 15-acre AQV section of the bylaw. Correct or incorrect?
Nothing.
15 acre, correct.
Nothing changed in 15 acre?
Right.
Nothing at all?
Right.
Okay, I don't understand all the back and forth why it's gone on. Okay, so just,
Well, you wanted it inserted in there, and I think town council had a difficult time.
but even now, after town meeting, they're freezing zoning and not freezing zoning and,
Well, this whole freezing zoning, to me, was unnecessary by Pulte.
yes, that's why
and
I'm going crazy.
The preliminary plan that they submitted relative to a commercial site, you know, it doesn't make any sense to
doesn't
me
make
now,
sense.
because they're coming in with something totally different. I don't understand how that freezes anything.
I don't understand why it's needed.
But that's a good question. Are they?
But, I mean, okay, it's getting late. and
Okay,
it
okay,
doesn't
okay.
have
All right,
anything to do
so
with what
here,
we're dealing with.
so my
We're talking
question.
about town politics,
Okay,
that's
okay.
all.
So my question for the applicant, if you have this lot with like 55 acres, and you're concerned about zonings, is there a reason why you didn't file as a 15-acre AQV and not a 10-acre AQV? Because there's two different sections in our bylaw.
I believe the
Yeah,
product that we'll be building,
Mhm.
fit the 10 acre.
You don't build that type of
15
house.
acres, very large buildings,
Yeah.
30, 40 units of building. That was denser, that had a different product type.
You could do the same
They're
single family.
more detached.
Yeah,
And I
can't
think
you
you're
do that
Weymouth,
in
you
15
did
acre?
some duplexes down there too, I think.
All singles, they're all singles, yeah.
Some of them look like a potential duplex. We allow a duplex on
Right.
a 10 acre.
Yep.
But their product is all single detached.
It's not allowed in 15 acre? AQV?
No,
It's not allowed.
not that. It's a 15 acre AQV was.
Okay, all right, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, my
Right.
last one. The map and lot number that you have listed here for this project, some of them are zoned residence A, not B.
I think it's wetland parcels.
Okay.
That are all wetlands.
So, parcels zoned in residence A are not allowed.
Right.
For an AQV. So.
We don't have any dwellings in the A. The A is all of the, basically starts where the swamp starts. So that's part of the overall holdings, but that's not, there are no dwelling units there.
But you're using that area to calculate different things, like allowed, area, setback, things like that. So my issue is, all those lots that are zoned residence A should not be in this AQV project.
We'll research that and address it.
And I mean, I did a count, looks like you have 26.8 acres that are zoned LM, which should be fine, but I take issue with including lots which are not zoned allowed in an AQV.
Yep, okay.
That
We will
was
look at that.
Big issue for me.
Yeah.
26.8 acres is absolutely correct in an LM. You have 20.7 in an RA. So this throws your maximum residential density off. And while you still, and the other thing is, I don't even know if you can use the density over the high tension wires unless you own that land.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions to be asked about the density calculation.
That's just, okay, so that's it, just the big stuff, I wanted to throw that out there, thank you.
But you do have RB, a small portion of RB that you can use.
We're out of tape.
Nothing listed here was RB.
Well, yeah.
And then they included things that aren't there, and then there are things that, so.
I think what has
Clean that
happened
up.
was because the dominant zone was RA, it showed in the assessor's online database. The RB did not show up in the assessor's online database. So you really couldn't figure it out. So you had to ballpark it, and I ballparked it at like 1.2 acres. And I still think that might have been too low.
Okay.
All right, we have a request for an extension. Well, I just wanna do this. Can I talk? Everybody else does but me. It's been a great day driving home from Boston. The cops stop with their bellies sticking out on freaking 109, you can't get by them. Want me to keep going? You read me today. I make a motion to, grant extension to take action up through September 30th, 2018.
Second.
We have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, we got that done. And before I schedule the next one, because I just wanted to get that done, oh, by the way, Mr. Bristol, what I found kind of a little chuckle is when he talked about giving access for fire trucks and school buses, and I'm thinking, that doesn't,
It's for Forest Road.
Yeah.
The folks that lived on Forest Road are concerned.
I had to think about that one too.
because it's
School
like,
buses that service Forest Road
I don't think they go up it.
have historically turned, but that's
Not
what they told
supposed
me.
to.
I don't know.
Really?
They told me.
They won't go on a dead
They
end.
won't go on a dead end.
Ask my kids, they have to walk a
Yeah.
long distance.
That might be why they're asking. She isn't here tonight, but
No, it was my neighbor who's grandmother now, and I think she was talking about when her kids were there. There's no, everybody else on the street, as far as me and my wife are retired. So right now, there's no kids there, but the 26-year-old just bought the first house at the end of the street, so maybe in the future.
Okay. Now I'll Anyone from the audience have any questions, comments? No, John? I'm gonna come to one of your meetings.
John Lee, 235 Lincoln Road. Jack, you're always welcome at our meetings.
Do I get to talk?
Just two things. It looks a lot like a subdivision plan.
Yep.
And if you look at the length of the roadway, looks a lot further than 750 feet, which I think is the limit that the zoning, the planning board would allow. And then the other one is, they've explained where the access is gonna come in off of West Street, but that's right by the bridge. And sightlines really need to be looked at on that, because you've got both Lincoln Road coming in there and also the downgrade on West Street at that curve. So I'm sure those will be addressed in the traffic.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, John. Anyone else? Okay, September 6th.
May we request being first?
Well, why don't we see what we got? No, I think 1350 is gonna come ahead of you guys, okay? You guys must have wondered, like, who are these people? They're not here for me. No, you'll be, right now, you're first, last, and only, right? Okay, we'll continue this hearing on we'll continue the hearings, thank you, till September 6th at 7:15. How's that, Sarah? Yeah, we probably go a little long, okay? So I'll see you people, and in the meantime, we'll get the stuff back for the peer reviews. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very much.
September 30th.
That's right. All right. And that kills it. Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're gonna take a second. All in favor? Aye.